Hello, everybody. Welcome. Tesla is up 1.5%. Oil 79, rising a little bit. The geopolitical concerns seem to be increasing slightly over the last few days. It's something I'm keeping an eye on. Has a lot of implications across the economy, obviously for everyone, including Tesla. Dow Jones up 0.2%, Nasdaq up 0.9%, S&P 500 up 0.8%. Any questions, comments? Please request to speak. I would actually appreciate if someone could come up and kind of verify that the audio is fine on all fronts. Let's see if Habib can come up for ACDC. We can keep going from yesterday's, where we left off on yesterday's Optimus discussion. ACDC, welcome. Is the audio fine?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Have you kind of slept over what we discussed, and do you have any thoughts about Optimus? Any new thoughts?
I do. Well, I mean, definitely a lot to take. I mean, I learned a lot, and my cost estimates have definitely come down. I'll admit to that, but my date still remains firm. So I'm firm on the bet, the coffee bet.
Yeah, I mean, I actually put out a poll about the about Optimus ramp, and let's see, what exactly was our bet? Let's see.
You said Optimus will be in households by 2027.
Okay. What do you think about this poll? I guess it's not as valid as I thought, but Optimus fleet exceeding vehicle fleets. I pinned it at the top.
It looked like it was literally split 4 ways.
Yeah, but I'm more curious about your specific kind of, I guess, response to that poll, because like sometimes these polls are, there's a lot of bots. You can literally get like a ton of bots for like $1 or something, so they're manipulated. But so I really appreciate. I actually look through people's replies to see what they say, their reasoning and everything. So, what's your guess?
Well, I was actually going to ask you a question on that. Whether you're talking about, I mean, I'm thinking you're talking about current fleet numbers at that time, and
right.
So that's like a moving target a little bit, and that makes it even that much more. And that's why I took the higher. I still take the higher estimate because I'm pretty much sticking to the fact that it's going to be an industrial application for a much longer time before we see any household penetration.
So you still think that, huh?
Yeah, I still think that. And then also in the industrial application, we're having advancements on other fronts on robotics also, and a lot of the other applications are already supplied with robots, so they're not just going to turn over into a new technology. So it's just like anything else. I think that adaptation is going to take a while.
Yeah. If anyone on YouTube could please come up to speaker board and just verify YouTube is working fine, I would appreciate it. If I asked you, ACDC, top reason, like if you could say one reason in one sentence why it's not going to enter the households, homes for later, what would you say in one sentence? What's your thesis?
intricacy of training for household purposes.
Sure. So yet last night, so let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Last night, Omar said, I believe it was Omar, that these robots will be trained. Like you could train. Actually, it was machine. Maybe you could train them. You should be able to train them without watching YouTube videos alone. Do you think that's possible?
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, maybe we can dig into that a bit more. Wes, do you think Optimus will be able to train? First of all, are you on YouTube?
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, YouTube sounds good to me.
Okay, great, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, do you think that Optimus will train at some point, and then we can discuss what point, if yes? Just watching YouTube videos.
You're saying train in the consumer's home? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like for example, will Optimus be able to watch a YouTube video of a human cracking an egg, making an omelet, and be able to do so? Or put
Totally.
together an IKEA bed and be able to
Of
do
course.
so?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. That'll be the evolution of AI.
Yeah. So ACDC, do you now? So not, I believe you respect. I believe you actually listed Wes yesterday about as an expert that you would want to hear from on this matter. Now that he says it will probably be able to. Actually, he said totally will be able to. Do you change your view on that?
So I respect Wes a lot and his view, and I did definitely said that I did say that I wanted a confirmation from him, but it makes me kind of go back to Meta's thought on why we don't have FSD in the Cybertruck, and also why licensing is not going to be so easy, because didn't he say that every car has its own dimensions and every part works in a certain way with a certain feedback and everything? So the response is different for training. So similarly, how can all those acts and the response taken for all those acts just be extrapolated from just watching videos?
Wes?
Yeah, we can talk about this in detail if you want. Maybe to address those
before
other
we
points.
Before we go into detail, let me get Robert's view real quick. Robert, do you have did you come up to just say about YouTube, or did you have something to say on the stuff? Okay, there we go. Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the reason that Cybertruck doesn't have FSD yet is due to the steer-by-wire system that's completely from the ground up fresh code. And so there's a lot of critical event code that has to go in there to ensure that there aren't, these extraneous events that can cause steering to be lost or to do things too fast. Anyway, I can talk about that in detail because my team implemented that a long time ago. So I think that's what's holding that up. As far as licensing it to another OEM, as long as they use the same cameras in about the same placement, the same power, the same data, the same compute memory, and they use the same brake booster, they use the same EPAS, the steering, and they use the same throttle ECU. All of those components, the real bottleneck to implementation becomes packaging the B-pillar camera into the chassis, because that's a crush safety component that needs to pass safety tests. So that if there's no packaging space for that, and what I mean is if you can't fit the camera in there in the B-pillar where it needs to go so that it can have the right sight, then your system isn't going to be licensable. So you're going to have to do that. And that takes a long time. Chassis turnaround for something like that, I think, is roughly 3 years-ish, for typical OEMs. So there's my thought on that. And then the breakdown for Optimus for being able to kind of like learn in real time. My thought is that it's not necessarily going to be learning in real time on the bot itself. What it's going to do, I think, is you're going to demonstrate something, and that video is going to go straight up to the cloud very quickly. There's going to be a submodel that's trained, and that submodel can come back. It's a smaller trained model can come back and augment what the weights that in the reward system that the bot uses to do that particular task. You know, it's like, I have this particular spatula and this particular nonstick pan, and I like my eggs to look and kind of wiggle just like this because I don't want them to, you know, I like my yolk runny. So these little eccentricities, these very fine details, I think can be weighted appropriately. But I see that happening at first in a submodel back in the cloud, and that can be trained very quickly and come back, you know, potentially within seconds. Locally, over time, that will be able to be trained. I would picture just a new architecture model type with maybe a couple layers, the inference layer, to just be able to have like these little tweaks, because it already knows how to fry an egg, let's hypothetically say. But just the way that you like it is kind of this key, you know, magic that would be added by your demonstration, that type of thing. I don't know, does that level of detail help?
It does. So that clarifies it a little bit better. But you're saying that it will be its own model, basically, that it's training off of, right? So comparing, so I'll give you an example. Like FSD just can't watch random videos of anything driving, okay? It's watching its own videos that are not just visual videos, but also data that comes along with the videos, right? So that's what trains it. So that's my point, that if, I'm not sure if you agree or if I'm correct in this, but Optimus will have to train on its own videos of feedback or training models, or like showing it acts through some, you know, augmented reality, versus just watching random YouTube videos of people doing things.
I think both can be interesting, because Tesla already has a way to kind of take videos and turn them into more of a 3D space through neural radiance fields. So I think that that's going to just keep getting better over time, the ability for you to be able to ingest kind of like one video that's shot from one sensor. So there's that part. And then the other part is that Optimus is going to have more than just its one camera. Assume that it might have heat camera, IR, and it might also have more detailed distance than what a normal human would have. So things can be learned much quicker if there is these little nuances of tiny little distances with this like dynamic detail technology that's been in games for quite a while. Its ability to kind of render at a higher pixel density the closer and closer you get to an object, to give you this more like fine-tuned control. And I believe it's already doing this to some extent. At least that's what it looks like in the videos. Does that help?
It does, but so you can't entirely confirm that though, right? That like
no,
FSD,
we're kind of.
Go
keep going. No, finish, please.
No, I'm just saying, just to what I was saying, like that's why FSD needs its own model to train, right? So as of right now, where we are, Optimus would need its own model to train off of, and not just those videos. But you're saying that in the future that could be possible.
Oh, let me take a step back. So FSD has its own foundational world model. It normalizes all these road segments, right? And then just as a kind of a base understanding, and then Optimus will also have a separate foundational world model that normalizes spaces, you know, your home, your rooms, and all of that, normalizes that down, to like something that it can function in. And because those are all different, but they're all still rooms. They're still spaces. It's still a floor. You know, it's still a walkable surface. but it has to know how to deal with each one of these individually in a human-like way so that it can operate in that space. So it's just optimized for a different type of locomotion and spatiality. You know, its proprioception has to be tuned to the task. So it's the functional world model, this foundational model, will be able to learn at that level of detail for the type of task that it needs. So this all requires tuning in the architecture of the model. But overall, Tesla now can see, at least I assume they can now see that this is functionally possible in the autonomous car application. And it seems like it's already possible in the functional case of at least a standing balancing robot, to be able to have all of those degrees of freedom, because they're saying it's end to end. I assume it's still this same functional model, it's just tuned differently. So these both will require different training to optimize for these tasks, because Optimus isn't going to need to drive a car, and the car isn't going to need to fry an egg. This is kind of like the basic way to say it.
Stephen.
Hey, so Wes, and if you just covered this, you don't have to answer, but theoretically, if Tesla was able to license FSD to like the Ford Lightning, for example, how smooth do you think the FSD would be able to, start working correctly,
Yeah.
given that the Ford Lightning is, entirely different from a Model Y or a Model 3?
Yeah, so it depends on, I would assume that because Bosch is a huge supplier of brakes, if they're using the same brake booster, they're probably using the same ECU. And that ECU already has Tesla code in it, at least the one that's implemented by Tesla, to do the safety controls, the safety critical controls. So that would be an easy implementation if that's the case. Or they could just swap to that particular SKU, that particular set of code, and that particular hardware. The same can be said for the pedal, the throttle ECU, and the steering EPAS, the electronic programmable assist steering, I think is what it stands for. But that's the same thing. Like, you would need that hardware because that code takes a long, long time to write. It's a lot of code, and it's all safety critical, and that has to not have any faults, for billions of miles. No false positives, no false negatives, being injected into that control state. So if that is the case, then wonderful. Like, that could actually happen pretty quickly. And yeah, if there's any Ford vehicle engineers listening, you could potentially license that within a year, because I think the Lightning in the B pillar most likely has enough packaging space, because it's such a large frame, and that would be a good potential place to start. It matters a lot less that it's a higher riding vehicle. It matters a lot less that it's a larger vehicle, because the spatiality requirements are not that hard to tune for. It's the safety critical code that's in steering and throttle and brakes that becomes the major bottleneck outside of the B pillar chassis crash, retesting cycle.
Machine.
Wes, continuing a little bit of our conversation yesterday, I looked up a tweet from February from Milan when they were talking about the Optimus walking in February 24th. And in that tweet, he says, quote, "We've improved our vestibular system, our foot trajectory, and our ground contact logic. We've upgraded our motion planner and made cuts to loop latency across the bot. Optimus is more stable and more confident overall, even during turns. We've added slight torso and arm sway." So it's not definitive, but when I hear all those descriptions of the specific things that they're updating, it doesn't make it seem like the walking balance is end to end, just because of each aspect they seem like they're working on independently. But it's not fully sure either. I'm not fully sure, but that's some added info.
I would agree. It's not fully sure, but also it doesn't mean they're going down the heuristic path. If they're adding in the vestibular, that would indicate to me that that might be a separate foundational model then, if it's end to end. So if they haven't really added that in, if the arm swing, was more of a just kind of like a pendulum type thing, I can see that being the case if there's no hip sway. If there's, if you're not opening your hips to walk, this is the more like robotic way to walk. But that part, I don't see how they can add that. That just adds this level of stack tolerances that I don't know how you'd heuristically code for that. So maybe they still are doing heuristics for pieces of the motion. That's possible. But this overall open kind of swaying gait that they have now, that's more human, I don't see how I would heuristically code that. I haven't seen another bot be able to walk that kind of human-like. But if they're able to do that with heuristics, like I think that's amazing. But I hope they're applying the foundational model and end-to-end photons in and control out, for walking too. And they're going down that path, which you've agreed in the past that they are. That is the goal, to go down that path. But if they're doing heuristics now, that tells me that the foundational model, for at least for the torso and the arms and grasping and pick and place, maybe that's just brand new then. But we'll see. Hopefully they'll answer your question. I'd really like to hear either way, because it's fun to speculate, but it's also fun to know the real answer so we can build on the future.
Question for the doctor. When do you think we're going to see Optimus training on YouTube videos?
I don't know. That's still a ways away.
Why is it way away?
General tech. Well, I'm just looking where Tesla is right now, and they're focused on these VR collection where they're basically feeding in images in the same.
That was months ago. And by the way,
That's
just
what they're
because they're
doing now.
doing that, just because. What do you mean that's what they're? You mean based on the video that was just got released?
Correct.
Well, but here's the thing: just because they're doing that doesn't mean they can't do the other side too, right?
I agree. I mean, I'm the one who's been saying that they're going to do it, right? At some point, that's the path.
But why do you say it's ways away?
I just think I'm just like anything. Things are hard work to get it working to a high level of fidelity at which it can be done reliably. The deduction of 3D kinematics.
Well, FSD is learning on video, simulated video, right? Why couldn't
that's not
Optimus
the
do
same?
How?
The
Why
same.
is it different? Okay, why is it different?
Well, you just said simulated environment, not YouTube videos, which are not simulated. Those are just third-party videos with grossly different perspectives, which I do believe most recent work in deep learning, computer vision, and all that can help you deduce the 3D kinematics of a human from that video, and then the bot could use that. And it just won't be manual. Like they'll just have a end-to-end thing converting that for the bot, so it can figure out, look at a video, figure out how to map those kinematics into its own self and perform it. I do believe that will be possible. Like, what is the limiting factor right now? My guess is more fidelity in terms of how accurately it can deduce those kinematics and use it. I'm not sure. There's just a lot of pieces there to get that working. So I'm just going to assume they're not doing it until they say they're doing it. But just to one up on address what Wes said, I do believe the walking is kind of separate to me than the balance right now, because it seems like the walking is like a demo. They're kind of showing it off, and it can have its own separate algorithm right now. The thing I'm actually more concerned about is the balance. The balance right now, I think, based on those statements, is probably pretty basic. I want to say basic. Like, it's still tough to make it work. Control algorithms, PD controllers, to make this thing stay balanced between its feet while it's doing these other tasks. And that can work for now when you're moving slowly. But once there's any sort of fast movement, even during these seemingly upper limb tasks, the amount of torques and forces that are exerted on the rest of the body to do those tasks is something that has to be accounted for by the balance control, and it can become unstable quickly. And as you know, once you have many different tasks, you can't code for all these different things and make it work, right? So you have to have a neural net handling that's robust. So that's why I keep asking the question to them. It's like, is this end to end? Is this the neural net? Because right now I don't think it is, and I think that's fine for scaling up all these demos. And honestly, my whole bullishness on the bot is the fact that there are so many tasks in the world at which this thing could probably do without even having full end-to-end balance control, and it's still useful. So that's the big bullishness about this. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Do you think Elon would ship Optimus the way it is, with upper body on end to end with lower body heuristics?
Well, he's shipped FSD without it being end to end. Maybe a beta mode only, Optimus beta.
Now, why hasn't he shipped at this point, you think? Just kind of to McDonald's, 1,000 of them.
Well, I mean, the hardware is in a totally different position than the car. It's not even anywhere close to volume.
Wes?
I think you can't heuristically code for all the different surface types and tripping hazards and dynamic changes in the environment. I don't think that'd be a good user experience. Like, imagine your house and the things that change inside of your house. You know, like literally, I mean, this is maybe not the best example for everybody, but we have a cat, and sometimes that cat throws up and it's on a slippery floor. And like, if Optimus were to walk on that and slip, you know, any type of water on the floor, and it caused the friction to be a lot less, then it falls over and, you know, potentially gets really hurt, or hurts the cat, or hurts, you know, a small child. Like, it can't do that. It can't fall with these tiny little dynamic changes inside the environment. Or, you know, the corner of a carpet, a rug that gets kind of curled up, you know, and adds this tiny little bit of a tripping hazard. You know, I have a little robot that goes around and vacuums in the house, and it'll catch the edge, even though I've taped them down. It'll catch the edge sometimes and lift it up, and like my wife or I will, you know, sometimes trip on it a little bit. All of these things are just these little gotchas that heuristic code. I don't see how they would be able to do heuristic code to account for all of these, and I can't imagine this huge disclaimer on the bot, which is like, you know, this thing could fall at any moment. You know, don't leave any. You know, the no pet. You can have no pets, no rugs. You have to have a floor surface that doesn't deviate by 1 millimeter. You know, things like that.
Yeah. So let me just kind of get clarity on where everyone's timelines are. Wes, when do you think Optimus will be in homes? What year and machine?
In the past, I was saying, you know, 27, 28 timeframe. I still think that's about right. I think beta could potentially be in 26, with 25 being kind of reserved for maybe a very small set of employees, and then maybe like Steve Jerviston. I could see a bot being in his place, if people know who that is. He's just a big early investor in Tesla. But yeah, I still think, you know, in like the late 27 timeframe.
Machine?
Well, number one, I fully agree with what Wes has said, and I would definitely avoid his cat at all possible. We don't want to hurt cats. my prediction is maybe it's even 2030, because I don't think this thing's going in the home first. Some of the reasons Wes said, there's way more variability that you have to deal with that maybe in certain factories or controlled situations kind of compress the dimensionality that you have to solve for a bit. I just don't see this thing being in homes necessarily at first, but I've been wrong before with, I didn't even think they were going to do a bipedal robot because of the challenges that we're talking about, and they are. So I don't know.
So why do you think you were wrong? Why do you think Tesla would do bipedal when you thought that it was too challenging to even, like, it's not worth it, you said, I guess, right?
I think the main reason is that they want to build one robot that's extremely scalable at volume, that can do with software a whole variety of tasks, and the fact that they keep it with one, type, that they can make it much cheaper versus having to have one robot that's got wheels and another robot that's a different design. That's not as scalable, I guess. I mean, that I was wrong. I can't fully rationalize why I was wrong, but I think that's their rationale. They want to be able to replace a human. So if they needed to get in a car and they don't know ahead of time what the design's going to be, what the layout of how the thing's going to have to install some component inside the car, then they just make it bipedal because they know that's the most flexible. But flexible means the most challenging from a software standpoint.
Yeah, I don't think Elon ever said they want to replace a human. I think that's a bit of a stretch. But I agree with everything else he said. Wes?
I didn't have my hand up, even though I can see on YouTube it looks like it is.
No, I thought you were saying something earlier when I cut off to kind of gauge where everyone was.
Oh no, I finished my thought, I agree with what Machine was saying too. It's very, just to say really quickly, like, it's really amazing that they're trying to do an AI end-to-end bipedal locomotion human-sized bot. Like, that's
Yeah.
super
So-
crazy, but it's
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah. So you guys are saying the bets that I have with ACDC posted at the top, he's going to win. Omar says I'm going to win that bet. So Omar's on my side with that bet. You two are on ACDC's side. Is that right?
Yeah, because I'm saying in 27, you're saying by, which means
Well, buy
December.
is no. Buy is by the end of. Look it up. Buy means by the
Okay.
end of.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, then I'm on your side.
Oh, okay. So you're on my side. Machine
Yep.
is on the side with ACDC, but we know Machine has a conservatism bias. Interesting. I like how this is shaping up. ACDC, go ahead.
So now that we're introducing this whole term of beta testing in homes, we need to clarify that a little bit. Are we talking about 2027 beta testing, or?
Dude, I don't think Elon will ever use the word beta in any product again. After what he went through with the 50. I think it's gonna be like up to supervised or something along those lines.
But you're saying, well, so how do we separate that? I mean, they could be doing a limited number of Optimus available for training and other purposes, or is it a mass availability of it for household purposes?
Yeah, I think it's mass available, so like anybody will be able to order it.
Okay, so that's what our bet is based. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the bet is. I mean, I'm not going to, if it's like Steve Jervis's house or something, like that's not what I'm going to think. Right? Inflexity, what's your question?
With the product nature of Optimus, why are we talking about beta testing and not alpha testing? I don't think there is a need for beta testing.
What's your question in 10 words? And the question should start with a question word. So those are what, which, where, how, why, who, when. So 10 words. Go ahead.
Why do you think Optimus needs beta testing?
Why do I think Optimus needs what FSD?
beta testing. Why do you think we need beta testing for Optimus?
I don't think it needs beta testing. That's what I'm trying to say. I think the beta testing is going to be done in the factories. So, Meta is here. Let's bring him up. If Fred wants to come up, he's welcome. Wes?
The reason that I think beta testing would be a really good thing is that I would want to know that the trained model could normalize itself and dynamically calibrate to those normalizations in many different types of dynamic and unique environments and spaces, because everybody's place is so different. So, I just think about all the different types of stairs that exist in the world, because it's going to have to go up and down stairs or it's going to be extremely limited in what it's going to be able to do. And all the different types of, washing machines and dishwashers and buttons that it has to press, different handles, different pressures that it's going to have to exert, all of those things. And, just the floors in and of itself, the variance in floors and walking surfaces and free space, and dynamic things that it could encounter, like a tiny little Lego, that might throw it off, and being able to detect those things. There's just so many different things in the world that exist inside of people's houses that beta testing would be extraordinarily data rich, for all of these variances.
Meta.
I'm trying to remember the name of the paper, but it would probably be helpful to think about one key difference between robotics and cars is the number of other dynamic actors in your spaces. Most of the time, the robots are not going to be interacting with high speed, a lot of other, vehicles and crazy drivers and weird circumstances. So while there is a lot of challenges in the surfaces that they're going to walk, and there's a lot of challenges in the different, kitchen types and various other things, you can kind of it'll reduce how many other actors are going to be involved with it, especially if you get cap how fast it moves. And simulation probably is sufficient. There's been a lot of work I think done in the last decade on how to start with no notion of walking, give peripheral constraints to in terms of the physics of the machine, and then learn how to walk from that and learn how to do everything basically end to end in simulation. You can imagine that you now only have to work on high fidelity representation of your physical prototype. So as an example, let's say it stresses out a particular actuator or joint or something. You just have to go into your sim and update that, whatever you missed.
Meta, who do you think is going to win the bet at the top?
In homes, it'll be close. I don't know if you're going to win this one, Yaman.
Or you have to pick a side.
By the end of,
Yeah, by the end of.
let me think.
Okay, well, do you think? Wes?
Well, I realize Meta's thinking on that, but I had a question for him. I'll wait until he's done thinking because I can smell the wood burning.
No. Okay, ask the other question. I'm welcoming tangents and distractions right now, Wes.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's true. Middle name is Tangent. I forgot. So given that you could potentially do all of that in simulation, how would you solve quick learning when things are not able to be simulated? Just hypothetically assuming that there are things that you will have to learn in real space versus simulated space.
Yeah, so you want to narrow down, I think there's two. Okay, I'm going to break it into three spots. There's the things that are above the torso, then there's the full body, because I think there's no real value in just testing below the torso too much. And then there is things that you can kind of generalize, and then there's things you can't generalize. So there's only three spaces we have to worry about, even though there's a cross product of four. So
what you probably do is above the torso, end to end in sim, get the hands and the upper piece working very well, and now you're focused on like deep understanding, route planning, basically everything you see in the React papers. You just focus on that. That'd be step one, in my opinion. Step two would be the whole stack together, learning to walk, balance, counterbalance, all that kind of stuff. You could probably do a little bit of that with heuristics, but I think you'd probably be better off going end to end. And where your heuristics come in is the heuristics you use for your sim to reality, trying to close that gap. You basically have to build a high fidelity sim, but in the world of AI, you don't really have to have a high fidelity sim. You have to have high fidelity between your policies of the real world and what the reality of the real world is. So I think you get into a lab, you create a whole bunch of funny scenarios, and you get it to basically just deal with all these different kinds of physics. So it has stability, doesn't fall over, can handle weird stairs, etc. The old Boston robotics pushing the robot kind of thing. And then the third one would be, now you've got everything somewhat stable, it's not falling over, it's not dangerous. Now you put into like complex environments and you have it do the deep reasoning and the stack together.
So did you pick a side?
Machine has something to say.
Come on, man.
I think it's a no.
that hard.
I'm gonna go with a no.
Wow. Okay. So you're going with ACDC. Machine is going. You're on the same side with Machine, man. How do you feel about that fact?
I'm questioning my entire reality.
And Wes is on my side. Omar is on my side. This is a 3-on-3. This could be a 3-on-3. We got even.
I don't know. I have to go back and check all my homework again.
Machine.
Well, keep in mind the reason I'm on that side is more that I think it'd be focused in outside of the home first. That's one big part of it, and I agree with your points. I really think the sim to real aspect, the error that propagates potentially between simulation and reality, is a real challenge, especially with bipedal robots. This is not like a few degree of freedom multi-link system that's rigidly attached like to the floor, where those errors are kind of constrained. When you're doing bipedal, it can go unconstrained, nonlinear dynamics. So it's really essential, that part. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do it. I mean, you're right that you have to have some sort of real world data collection still, right, to learn those algorithms, at least partially. You were talking about some constrained environment. So it'll be interesting to see how they overcome this challenge. But I do disagree with the one point that there's no use in testing below the waist. In fact, your mom's mom did that to me last night.
You know,
I was waiting to see where he was going with that. I was like, wait, really?
Oh no, I saw it from a mile away. But I think we should change this to a 3x3 for our first 3x3 bets.
Yeah, I'm open to it with the constraints that, like, when you say in home, here's the place where we could lose, Machine. I'm just trying to reason through it before I hop onto this bet.
Nah, I think we should hop onto the bet and then you reason through it.
We want to educate ourselves. I'm very nervous about being on the same side as Machine.
I'm here to win coffee bets, baby. Let's go. I need more. Daddy needs more caffeine. Let's go.
Like, Tesla could very well have these working in a factory doing many things. And then they could sell it like a vanity thing for anybody who wants like a tequila or a snowboard or anything like that. And then it just sits in their house as like a machine.
No, that's not
nice
what
to
we're
look
talking
at
about. We're
until
talking
the software catches up. So,
yeah,
so we're talking
we're
about it's actually doing useful stuff.
thousands.
Okay, thousands.
We're talking thousands, yeah.
And what are they able to do? Are they folding your clothes?
Anything. I mean, I don't care what it's able to do. In homes, thousands of them in homes, not just in Steve Jurgensen's house. Machine at West.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the main risk in this bet is Elon Musk. He can just decide whatever he wants. If someone's like, look, we could save billions of dollars in our factories by putting this in there. We can put this in all the fast food restaurants. We can make $10 billion a year. Like, we deploy this. Or he'll ask, well, what can it do in the house? Well, it can fold clothes. And we really can't make any money on that. He's like, no, we're going to do that first. This is totally realistic possibility. So yes, we could lose the bet.
West and ACDC while I type this 3-on-3.
For you guys that are what do you think is the limiting factor? What's the bottleneck? Is it software or is it hardware?
Imagination. ACDC, go ahead.
So that's what Machine said is exactly my point. I mean, that where are they going to concentrate on getting this out to? Industrial use, where it'll be easier for them to apply it and to sell it to, where it actually leads to productivity, or somebody wanting it in their house for doing some tasks and willing to pay a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bot to sit there and do it for them. So that's exactly part of my rationing too. So.
All right, the bet is on. At the top of your screens, the first 3-on-3.
I feel like I'm being
Grand-
bullied into a vote here.
Excuse me. Don't interrupt the announcer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the first. I can't finish this. Okay, go ahead. It's at
Keep
the top.
going. Keep going. You started something. You must finish it.
Let's get ready to rumble.
This is going to be somebody's new car lock.
Exactly. Did you see that? By the way, I just submitted my reviewing article, and I don't think anyone has ever done more like what's the other side of my bet research than I have for this article. But anyway, please keep going.
So to answer Wes's question, I think the limiting factor here is probably going to be competition for battery cells over the next few years still. Vehicles, energy plants, and now Optimus. I'm not saying Optimus takes a ton of batteries, but it would constrain going from like hundreds of thousands and satisfying all the factory use cases and all the commercial use cases and getting all that nuance right, and having a team that you could be like, okay, let's also figure out home environment at the same time. I think there'll be many, many robots out there, but I just don't think they'll be in residential use.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, first of all, let's go to Habib. Habib,
I just wanted to actually ask about something physical construction of the robot, if we could.
go ahead.
The robot, this bipedal robot, and they're really imitating how a human engages in this world. But I was wondering, there's an opportunity to make this better than a human. In a way, for instance, like Wes was mentioning about it tripping and falling over. And so one of the things I wanted to just share real quickly was when humans trip and fall, we kind of don't do it very gracefully. And a lot of it's because of the limitation of our joints, our flexing and extension of our joints, and then this need to protect our head. So we use our outwards, we put our hands out. But remember that Atlas robot, the way it got up from the ground, because it had, joint mobility, it could hyperextend and hyperflex. And if they incorporate that in this robot, that could really help it balance itself much better, almost to a point where it wouldn't even ever fall over, because it could really shift its center of gravity very quickly, much quicker than a human could. My only question is now, sorry about that prelude, but my question is that how would they train the robot? Like how would they train it to be able to know what are its limitations, physical limitations, compared to what the task that they're going to give it if we are using human-like tasks to train it? Thank you.
Wes.
I'm not sure I quite understand the
I don't
question.
understand the question either. It's the
Can I
truth.
take
I
really
see your
mess things
reasoning
up.
on the side of
Meta.
like,
I think I get the question Habib is asking. You're saying, let me confirm. You're saying theoretically you could make the robots have different biomechanics than humans. And if you did do that, how would you train it to take advantage of that?
Yes.
Okay, so the key here is software 1.0, you tell the machine what to do. So if you give it random joints and stuff, you have to know how to use those. And we've never seen it or observed it. So you'd have to be really creative in your thinking. Like the Atlas one was basically told how to stand up. Software 2.0, you tell it what not to do, and it explores all the other possibilities in between. And as long as it's achieving the reward you're telling it to achieve, it'll find the most graceful, most efficient way to get there, assuming that's what you're rewarding. So you could reward less energy use, less wear and tear. You could reward achieving the goal, not falling over, maintaining the head, etc. And then you could throw in 4 arms. You could throw in many legs. You could throw in whatever peripherals you want, and it will figure it out. And the key important piece is, even with it looking like a human, it will not be biomechanically equivalent, no matter what.
Wes?
Yeah, I agree with Meta. He said it really well.
Machine?
Yeah, I also agree. In fact, there's a lot of simulation environments already, which people are building humanoid robots and doing reinforcement learning with these sort of costs, like don't ever fall on the ground. And right now though, they're probably usually showing up solutions that maybe aren't realistic in the real world, because sometimes they optimize for the simulation physicality of the bot, which actually, when you go to the real world, there's some differences, and those don't work. So they have to be careful. But this is something they can do. I would just say, though, I wouldn't diss humans. I mean, humans, Habib, I don't know. You maybe work with humans. Maybe you work with too many humans and you're just sick of seeing them. But humans have this amazing physiology built in. For instance, especially for things like tripping, they have 2 joint muscles like the rectus femoris and your hamstrings, which when you trip, your brain, I don't even know if it's your brain, if it's just your spinal cord, sending back that stretch response mechanism to react and change the orientation of your legs so that they splay out to help prevent you from falling. You don't think about putting your hands down or spraying out your legs. You just do it. And Optimus has to learn all these things from scratch. It doesn't have any fail safes. So for now, it's starting at a worse spot. But yes, eventually, if the software is good enough, if or when it learns the internal model of its own being at such a high level of fidelity that it's actually superior to a human, then there is amazing amount of things it could do eventually.
The model, the model that learns how to use its peripherals inside Optimus will be the exact same model that will learn how to use any peripherals. You give it Edward Scissorhands and it'll figure it out, because all you would have to do is learn how to describe the policies. That's kind of like the hard part now. It's figuring out how to make the machine that builds the machine. And for folks that are, following along, Tesla's learning how to do that in FSD. That's like a really hard challenge, is to describe what not to do. It's easier than telling it what to do, but it's still a really hard challenge. And as you get better and better at that, the possibilities for changing out the hardware become much easier. So if Tesla has a new car, bringing out new cars has not been that challenging. The driving mechanics are quite different. You can imagine now you could give the bot, make it heavier or lighter, have it different referrals. It'll figure it all out.
No hands.
So, yeah, no, you're right, Machine. The human body is phenomenal, and I'm not trying to undersell it or undercredit it. Meta, what you just mentioned about what you just said. So, FSD, for instance, would it accelerate faster in a plaid vehicle versus a non-plaid vehicle because it's more capable?
In theory, if the situation called for it and it didn't violate safety, yes. But I would imagine they're telling it to prioritize safety, so it's not being rewarded for accelerating like a speed demon.
And also, I hope you feel better. You sound a little congested.
Me? I'm not congested. I would leave the calls to you, man.
Excuse me. There's an expert on board. Please don't provide a medical opinion when there's an expert. He is not congested.
On another topic, that's less weird. Um, the the thing about I'm willing to stick my neck out on this. I don't know have 100% confidence, but I think the first iteration of Optimus will require some cameras in the room to be set up, kind of like supervisory God cameras. And if that's the case, it could make it into homes, but it would be easier to do it in workplaces first. Specifically because it's a lot conceptually, at least for me. I'm obviously not aware of what the team is thinking, but it'd be interesting to basically allow it to be semi-supervised by having another model trained to be the supervisor, God mode, if you will, where it watches the robot. If the robot falls, it can visually say, well, it's obviously fell. Now, the robot can tell that it's fallen too, but the robot may not be able to tell what's going on behind it or various other things. And you could have the supervisory robot kind of track all that stuff. Supervisory view, sorry.
No hands.
I'm just imagining and hoping that when Tesla sells the Optimus in the home, it comes with like a little red necklace with a button on it that if it falls, it hits it and it can call someone and say, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Life alert, life alert. Well, you could theoretically, if they want to get creative, they could have another robot in the room just looking at the other robot, right? It's like the supervisor, the manager robot, if you will. And it's like, I'm tracking that you aren't doing your work. You've gone off and you're watching TV instead of loading up the machine.
Justin Straight says in the live chat, 3-on-3. Is this a coffee pot then?
I believe we call it a menage a trois.
I would argue that
That's-
when they release Optimus,
That's not what a menage a trois is.
all right.
If you
I
want to
would argue
learn, just
that-
ask your mom.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I would just make the prediction actually that when they do release Optimus for the home, it actually won't fall. It will not fall.
I disagree. I don't think you do not engineer systems for domain constraints that will never happen. This is partly one of the big disagreements I think that some people have about is L3 in autonomy even a useful thing. Constraining systems is useful for training and various other things, but by the time you release the product, you must be able to handle all domains it can find itself in. What if the robot's off and somebody accidentally bumps into it and it falls on the ground?
Well, what I mean by that is that actually it's not a limitation of them releasing it. I think they will, the ability for the computer to process and determine spatial recognition, the robot, will be faster than a human. Its reaction time will be faster than a human, and it will be able to balance itself. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's not a given. Your computational speed will determine how much computational power you have to have in the bot. And today, the energy used for computational thought is way like many, many orders of magnitude higher in silicon than it is in wetware.
So would that be then? This is a question I posed yesterday to Omar. Would that be like saying there will be no neural net learning or training done on the robot, or will it have to, or were we going to be able to have that done locally on the device itself?
I think it's got to go to the cloud. That would be even more computationally crazy to put it in the bot.
And risky machine.
Well, speaking of risky, I don't know why Habib is obsessed with not having the bot fall over at all. He's just obsessed with it. And I just think he doesn't know what he's asking for. Because if you just say, train this thing to never fall, okay? Just imagine the bot's going to go through and optimize all possible scenarios that say, I cannot fall above all else. So then this thing's going to be in Habib's house, and Habib's going to come, his wife's home with a pizza, and he's so happy he comes running down the stairs, and the bot's at the bottom of the stairs. and he trips and he starts tumbling down the stairs toward the bot. And the bot realizes, it computes quickly that there's no way it couldn't fall unless he breaks Habib's arm and tosses him over him. And he's going to do that to not fall. Is that what you want, Habib?
No, the
I'm growing increasingly uncomfortable being on the same side of the bed as Machine.
I mean, think about this. Thing
So,
could be someone in the way, and he's like, I can't fall. I guess I must just take you down, slam you down, so that I don't fall to the ground. You got to think about these things, babe. Okay, you're not thinking deeply. You're focused superficially, just like your medical job. It's lame.
Did you say you're going to think about these things, babe?
I said lame.
Lame. I
I
thought you
heard
referred
babe.
to Habib as babe. Yeah, I heard babe too. Did you think do you refer to your wife as babe?
Hey, babe. No,
You
she
did,
would
don't
just.
you?
She would
You
probably
thought
punch
Habib
me.
was your wife, didn't you? It's real weird.
He's got a little
I'm
more.
really uncomfortable.
He's got a little bit more facial hair.
Anyway, listen, I don't want the details of what's going on here. Let's just move on. Tesla Yoda, go ahead. Tesla Yoda changed his mind. All right. Well, where are we at now? So, Meta, are you picking sides?
Sides on this coffee bet?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was already voluntold which side I was taking.
Machine.
Well, let's get to another topic, which is it's May 2024. And I believe, I don't know if it's at the beginning or the end of this month, at which Meta and you lose your second bet on FSD, that it should be L4.
There was no bet on the first one, so your memory's faulty. And happy to have this discussion if you want to go down this path.
I don't need your excuses that in theory, if we constrain it to a tunnel under Las Vegas, that it could be L4. The fact is,
What
the
if
conversation
we
was around. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Go back to mute. The conversation, if you remember, was just about general competency, that this thing was going to be highly competent so that in some places it could be L4, meaning someone could be in the back seat and this thing would be reliable enough to do that. And what we're seeing so far is that's simply not the case. Now, you could argue in some subset of areas on the FSD beta tracker, which up to today you didn't even trust, except for when it fits your narrative, that you're seeing less disengagements, but statistically they still don't even have enough power based on 1,000 miles to say that this thing is going to be somewhere where you can get 100,000 miles without a accident. So there's not enough proof, insufficient proof to validate your point, and you're going to lose the bet. And I just hope you accept defeat gracefully, which I know is hard for you to do.
Yeah. I think he's right in the last part at least. I mean, you still have 30. You still have. Let's see. You still have about 25 days. Until the end of May.
Wes already accepted defeat. Yaman wants to accept defeat. We could just settle the bet where somehow Machine and I won and somehow Wes and Yaman lost, even though we're on opposite sides. But if you look at the same thing, by the way, every time we talk about the FSD beta tracker, my criticism is that there's a moving bar because of the subjective nature of the way people put things in. So my criticism has always been that it's too conservative, not that it's incorrect, right? That's consistent. Okay, Machine agrees. If you go look at the FSD beta tracker today, and you look at the last two versions of FSD 12, it's at 1,300 miles in California, 0 disengagements, not critical. Sorry, 0 critical disengagements, 80%, I think it is, for disengagements overall. That's over 1,000 miles. You did this whole soliloquy where you started and you said the bet was that it has to do it generally, but that's not what L4 is, right? L4 is domain constrained. So by the end of your soliloquy, you stated, well, you're making the case that it could operate in some locations. Well, if it can operate even in one city in the country, or one region in the country, L4. That's L4.
You have insufficient proof based on number of miles that you're anywhere close to that level of fidelity. I'm sorry.
Didn't you say 1,000 miles was the bar when you were doing your soliloquy 2 seconds ago?
No, 100,000. See, you're just making up stuff.
FSD beta tracker
Yeah.
doesn't even have
Break.
100,000 miles
Disgusting.
on it.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I know. Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree. Man.
How many
You-
miles
you
does
gotta-
FSD beta
you gotta-
tracker have overall?
I-
It's not
I
100,000
think-
miles.
I really think that you should start with I lost, but you gotta admit that it is closer than you thought. Maybe you can make that argument, but to argue that you're even close to winning this, buddy, wild. This
I
reduces
think it comes
credibility, I
down
think.
to people not reading what L4 means. Like it really just comes down to we were very specific about the words I wanted, and somehow we have just removed all those and reworded it to L5.
Okay. Machine.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I was saying, listen, I'm busy. I got a job. You're a slacker, Meta. Why don't you go spend the time and review that Spaces from like a year ago where that bet was made? Go find it at least so we can go listen to it, that timestamp, and we can reassess and make sure we're clear on where this, what the context was. Since you are just weaseling your way out of yet another bet, it's really sad.
Again, we never had another bet. The only bet you and I have ever had, you lost, and that was about the number of Cybertrucks on the parking lot. So stop. If I lost another bet to you, please bring it up. Right? Until that time, you are just making up facts. And then number two, we don't need to go look at the context. It's written in the bet.
This is a good example of a model citizen, an upstanding person who just says, I lost the bet. You cannot do that. You can't even admit when your predictions, maybe it wasn't a bet, but your predictions are wrong, and your
I actually came to the space explicitly.
Here's
that I was wrong.
the bet. The bet is at the top of their screens. Okay, this is from May 26, 2023, so about a year ago, and that is the space. So if anybody wants to listen to the recording of 8 hours and 54 minutes, you can probably use the timestamp of the bet tweet at the top, 2:02 p.m. And looks like the space started. So it should be about 2 hours into it, just short of 2 hours into that recording. Okay. But I mean, I like, it's not even close. That's why I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Yaman, have you tried FSD in California?
There's nothing in that bet about California. First of all,
that's what L4
means.
It
says no. It says in
L4
the US.
capability.
No.
I tried
Level 4. Hold on. Level 4 in the US is still L4. Okay. Level 5 is anywhere. Yes. Level 5 is anywhere.
US in the US.
No.
The whole point of this bet was to compete with Waymo.
No one cares if it can drive itself in your neighborhood. That's not what the bet is about. That was never what the bet is about. We all agree Waymo's current solution is not economically viable. It has to be at least nationwide. That was the spirit of the bet. And I bet you, if you go back to the recording, that's what you're going to find out anyway. So feel free to do that. But the thing is, like, there's nobody who even contemplated that Tesla would start a business, Waymo-like service in one city.
Actually, you can go back and see many discussions between yourself and I.
That is not like that it's going to be able to do it in one city.
No, wrong. You used to say.
Okay, let me ask you this. If it's US, do you think it's level 4 or level 5 with SAE?
Well, I don't think you know what level 4 means based on that question.
Okay, really? Okay, I thought it was geofence, right? Because to be in the US, it still has to be geofence, right?
No, being level 4 in the US was the constraint was added because Machine was worried that they could launch it somewhere in China.
I can't believe we're even discussing this right now. This is ridiculous. to claim that this is like, yeah, this is ridiculous. To claim that you can just like pull it and basically shut your eyes if there is no nag, and it'll definitely get there, or it won't accept it. None of these things happened.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Meta, yeah, he missed the context. The context in that conversation was L4 capability in a sort of generalized fashion. There'd be many places in the US that this thing would work. And to show you how much he tries to change the facts, I think it was a month ago, he was honestly trying to convince us that having a person sit behind the steering wheel would count as L4. That he would win the bet, because even if it required the person behind the steering wheel, which is not the case. L4 is the person can be in the back seat. And he's just constantly changing things to fit his narrative. And he's just spiraling out of control. And just like the FSD V12 car that we drove in together spiraled almost out of control on this mountain road as it got confused by a trash can and accelerated into it. And he thinks this thing's ready and he wins the bet. And he's just so far off. It's sad. Sad to see.
There's a lot of tons and tons of misinformation in your machine, and you have to know you're being misinforming right now when you say these things. First off, L4, go read the standard, requires a human to take over. Therefore, you must either have a remote operator or you must have a human behind the wheel. This is not up for debate. It's in the damn regulation. It's in the damn recommendation. That we also read the law here. When Waymo and Cruise first opened up L4 permit applications in California, they all had safety drivers. That makes it L4.
Again, you move off to the context of the bet, which is that we were talking about the system being at the level of competency, level of disengagement rate being so low. They would be able
Well,
to
then the bet should have been worded based on
So
the
you're
way you
just
think it's
sneaky
supposed to be
Pete.
worded.
You should have
It
been a
just seems
lawyer.
like you didn't know what you agreed to in a bet.
No.
lost
Oh
because
my
you didn't know
gosh,
what
no,
L4
this is
was.
ridiculous. You're coming so close to never be invited to a coffee bet again. I'm serious. This is ridiculous. Would you ever put, like, even in California today? I'll give it 2 more months. Would you put your child in the back seat?
Without
Would
a
you?
safety driver in the front, meaning it's L5?
Would you?
No. With a safety driver,
Exactly.
yes.
That's not the point.
That's
Would
what
you put it
L4
by?
means.
Would you put your child in the back of a Waymo today?
Yes.
Okay. Would you put it in the back of Tesla FSD?
It's not L5.
Would you put
If Tesla had remote
forget the
safety
level
drivers,
5,
I
level
would, yes.
forget level 5, level 4. Okay. Today,
If Tesla
there's a
has
Tesla in the front of your house and you have a child, and the child's looking at you, looking up into your eyes. Dad,
today
I
the car
want to be
can't
safe.
drive, so I'd put the kid in the back of the car because
The
the car's not going to
child,
drive without
the
someone in the car.
child,
It's done.
the child's name is, I don't know,
When we lose on facts, we go to
something.
emotions.
Okay. No, it's not about emotions. We're making a point here. Okay. You have 2 options. There's a car in the front, Waymo, and then there's a car in the front, Omar's Tesla. And you're in Omar's neighborhood. Okay. And the child has to get to the hospital. You got to get your child to the hospital. And you can't drive. You have to put in one of them. Which one are you putting into?
I'm going to put him in the Waymo because if I put him in the Tesla,
Boom.
he's in the parking lot the whole
Case closed, sir.
because the
Case
car doesn't work
is
without a driver.
closed. No, let's say it works.
Well, you said today. Now we're going to change
Okay,
the
let's
rules
say
to
it
fit your
works.
narrative.
No. You said the bet is all about there's no regulatory, blah, 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 blah. So let's say, no regulatory, as we said in the bet. Let's say it does actually work without a driver in the driver's seat. Which one are you
That's
putting
not
into?
L4.
Let's just listen. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the speaker board and the audience.
I am. You guys are recharacterizing what I said. I highly recommend you guys go read it again because 2 years ago, I knew what the definition meant. And clearly some people here didn't know what it meant. I knew what the regulations were, and some people clearly didn't know what the regulations were.
You're out of order. Tuck. Out of order. This is ridiculous. Anyway.
If there was a remote driver today in California, I think Tesla could launch L4.
No way.
Jimmy,
No,
Jimmy.
no.
So being in Minnesota as a father of two, I can tell you I would never tell my son to get into my Tesla and just let it drive somewhere. One, because I've never been in a Waymo. Two, Waymo's not in Minnesota. It's only mapped to California with the big tech nerds. Yeah, you're all nerds if you live there. And then the other reason is Tesla just isn't there. And you can go talk about level 4, level 2, level 3, but the general consumer doesn't know what any of that means.
Jimmy, I wouldn't put my kid in a Waymo in Belgium either, but we're not talking about Belgium. We're talking about California.
I would put myself or my kid in the back seat of this latest build and let it do a short drive.
Ooh, not me. Sorry.
I literally haven't had an intervention in 2 weeks. Like, okay, if you just want to look at the letter of the law, I can see how you could say that Meta lost, but if I was the judge, I would give it to him. I would give it to Meta and Yaman, because I mean, really, you're going to take a victory lap on this, given how good it is. Like yesterday, me and my dad had to go drop off flowers at my grandma's. So we got in the car. I pushed drive us there. It drove us there curb to curb. Then I pushed auto park. It parked for us. We got done. I got in. It drove us back curb to curb. So, I mean, to take a victory lap on this and say, ha, it isn't level 4. I won. I told you. How many people predicted that it would be able to drive curb to curb with no intervention reliably? And you know what? May isn't even over yet. We got the whole May and a major new version coming that adds reversing, smart summon, and a whole new model. So I wouldn't laugh at Meta yet.
Also, the
It's
bet clearly
basically
says
doing everything already.
the bet also clearly says no regulation, and I had to negotiate in the space. Yaman was resisting putting all the terms in there.
Yeah, like, I mean, people would criticize me if I did this, but you can obviously turn off the nag in cabin camera, and you know, there are people who've sat in the back seat before and had it run, and I'm pretty certain that it would be able to do a short drive around the neighborhood without any interventions. It would be, you know, reckless driving probably, but from a technical perspective, it can actually do it. And I don't think people have really wrapped their head around that yet.
Machine.
I would just like to add that keep in mind the context here was not that Meta and you thought that this would happen by May. It was that you had made a prediction that it would happen by September, and it was already so egregiously over that we said, hey, we'll give you the halfway point between your prediction and my prediction was the end of this year. And, you know, I was kind enough to give you that leeway, even though you went way over your prediction, much like Price is Right. And you should just be kicked out at that point. But I was willing to go halfway, meet you halfway.
Let's hear.
And-
Let's hear.
well,
Wes's. Hold on one second. Hold on. Let's hear Wes's take since he's in the bet as well.
Yeah, I'm still with Omar and Meta. I feel like it's going curb to curb, and all they would need is a remote operator, which they might already have that functionality. They just haven't rolled it out yet. That might be what 8.8's for. But I'm not getting any takeovers, critical safety takeovers at all. So it feels like a level 4 system to me. So that's where I'm at.
You want to switch spots since you're saying you're on the no side, I'm on the yes side, and we're just saying the other side. I'll switch spots with you.
Notice how all the people who use FSD are on one side and the people who don't have it are on the other side.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too. It's a good point.
Ooh, I might be the.
I've had more FSD 12.3.6 miles than Meta has. Okay.
You
Okay.
are so wrong based on one experience in Austin, Yaman. I literally had
How
a
do you know?
fleet
How do you
of
know it's one?
Teslas.
How do you know one? You
How do I
drive
know?
three. How do you drive three at the same time? How do you know I only have one experience?
No, I said based on one experience with me in a car.
How do you,
You're basing your
Oh,
entire
okay,
statement
gotcha.
on one experience.
No. That's not what I'm basing on.
Yeah, I drive regularly. I don't know how you have more miles than me. Like, it's not
All
true.
right, post your screenshot.
I can't
Post
because I
your
have a
screenshot.
Turo fleet. I don't drive the same car all the time.
Okay, just post it for the one account, whichever you want, the highest one, with the highest FSD percentage, and let's see.
Again, you only get that if you have Tesla insurance, which you would know if you were driving it regularly. Because I have a Turo fleet, I don't pay for Tesla insurance. That'd be a crazy waste of money.
Okay.
Turo
So
has
you don't have the safety
and you have
score.
secondary insurance
But
from when you're a fleet operator.
Omar posts his FSD
He has Tesla insurance.
miles. Okay.
These subtle facts, they're like they're getting lost
What
somehow.
% of your miles are on FSD?
99, if not 100.
Okay.
Totally
Jimmy?
true. I tell you what, Yaman, I will show you the route I've been doing on the regular because it's a house that I'm flipping with my dad. I literally turn it on. It drives all the way to my house. The only thing it doesn't do is it stops on the right side instead of the left side of a one-way.
Hey, I'm gonna jump in here. So all my drives, I do 98% FSD. I turn it on from the time I get out of my driveway to the time I pull into wherever I'm going. I have to intervene with it here and there. We have construction in our area. They actually took a clip of my FSD drives that I posted online and used it in MSNBC's like latest Tesla full self-driving thing. You can hear me in there. Um, I I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying it's way better than version 11, but it still has a lot of problems. And I'm in the Midwest. It might be very different in California, but today I recorded and I didn't get through the full drive. Like I can't do it. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just letting the car go, and I'm a person who just lets it happen. I'm like, I'm gonna wait. It's like it needs to figure it out. I put a lot of my trust in the car and it doesn't always work. Plus also it does screwy things that aren't considered interventions. Like, would you weave back and forth between a lane? Probably not, but the car does, and we accept that as okay.
Scott Archer.
I don't have a question. It's an interesting conversation as I'm being driven down the road to get the inspection on my new car with FSD, and it's been perfect since I got out of work and jumped in 20 minutes ago.
Anecdotal. Meta.
You guys are using anecdotal evidence all the time when it's
Not true.
The
Not
little
true.
child in the car looking up at you. Come on, man.
I asked you that. I
Okay,
asked you that. And you said wait.
Here's the problem. Well, you can go look at the technical reasons why. Here's the problem with Jimmy's statement. We, again, are missing the core part, L4. Why was I obsessed with L4? Because that's the standard that Waymo had to meet. L4 requires a remote driver or a driver present. All the situations people describe as it gets stuck and I had to hit the accelerator. Guess what? A remote driver can do that too. It didn't know how to get out of the little spot, it got stuck. If it's not going to lead to a crash, if it's not safety critical, not trip completion critical, it's not safety critical, you can apply, you can start. That was the core reason for the bet. That was where I was coming from. I'm consistent. I came to the space when I missed in September 27. I came to the space. I admitted when I was wrong. I have admitted when I'm wrong on many, many topics. I don't like being characterized as someone who's being hard-headed when I'm genuinely saying, I personally believe I was right.
Omar.
Yeah, I think obviously if you just want to read the bet literally, then they haven't achieved level 4 yet, and they're unlikely to achieve it by the end of May in terms of, what we think of as L4, like a car driving without a driver. But, it's a little bit like if Tesla Q said, oh, Tesla's going to be bankrupt, and, then they're sort of celebrating after a bad quarter or something like that. I mean, all these little sort of, setbacks or saying, okay, it's not done in May yet, kind of, I think misses the bigger point that it is actually doing drives curb to curb. And also, Lucid earnings came out. I don't know if we want to discuss that or not, but yeah.
Not right now. Maybe later.
Hey, did you know you're in that video too? Like they took a bunch of YouTubers' videos. I just found out about this like a day ago. It was like there's a video on MSNBC, and it's about full self-driving, and there's clips from Wholesale, myself, and whoever else in these channels. And then I think there's actually a clip of this recording from a Tesla space in that video. It's like an 11-minute series
What's
that they
what's the
did.
video? What's
Here,
it
let me go
about?
find it. Let me go find it and I'll message you.
Can you just give me a TLDR? Because I can't watch it right now. I just need one sentence about what the video is about.
It's just about the future of full self-driving in America and that Elon pretty much is a liar.
Okay, whatever. I don't need to see that. Yeah. I cannot believe we just had this discussion for an hour.
I mean, it's literally.
ridiculous. It is not. Sorry, excuse me, sir. The buck stops with me in this space. Okay, you can create your own space and claim you won or whatever, but you clearly lost. Because I was on your side as well, I clearly lost as well. There's nowhere close to being L4. Zero chance that you can argue this is L4. And there is no such thing as just one area of US. It was about US, nationwide, not just Omar's neighborhood. And even then, you have zero evidence, aside from anecdotal evidence, to say this is L4, other than a couple of people saying I don't have any disengagements. And when I asked you if you would put your child at the back of a Waymo or a Tesla driver or a Tesla FSD, you said Waymo. And in the midst of these discussions, we had discussed, we would have to see months and months and months of no disengagements from any YouTuber to say the software has reached this capability, and we're nowhere near that either. So we just saw one from Chuck Cook, where the car clearly had a safety critical disengagement.
Remember, you're
Excuse me.
misremembering so
Excuse me.
much. Go rewatch the thing.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, I applaud Yaman for not being insane and taking a reasonable stance on this. I would encourage the group to make sure that you're not getting too hyped up on each other's optimism for this tech. I mean, it's just not L4 remotely.
Not even close. Are you kidding me? This is like literally next level, this is just ridiculous.
I did enjoy that listening to like half the group think it was. That's insane.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. We're changing topics. Stephen?
So I wonder if maybe Wes or any speaker could just explain the key differences between L2 and L3 and L3 and L4, just briefly maybe.
No, they're irrelevant. Omar, do we have any updates on Elon's compensation voting?
No, voting still going on, and the tally should be announced on June 13th at the annual meeting.
All right.
There have been some notable people, obviously, campaigning for people to vote no. Fred Lambert, Leo Kogwan. They've been making the case on X for people to vote no. So that's the only notable development I've seen. But most people that we talk to here on X are voting yes.
Yeah. Let's see what Sawyer has in the news. Oh, okay. Lucid earnings, you were saying. So what came out of it?
Nothing that interesting, honestly. They lost money. They raised some money from the PIF affiliate. They delivered less than 2,000 cars.
Okay. The stock is down 8% after hours, but it was up 10% throughout the day. So it's basically back to yesterday's prices. In the last 5 days, stock is up 24%, $7 billion market cap. Interesting. Rivian announces tomorrow afternoon.
So they had a net loss of about 680 million compared to 779 million a year ago. So they narrowed their loss by about $100 million, but still pretty bad.
Yeah. Lucid CEO Peter Rollins in their Q1 earnings report, according to Sawyer, said, I believe there are two factors that set Lucid apart, our superior in-house technology and the partnership with the PIF. Highlights, EPS negative 0.3 versus negative 0.25 expected. Revenue 172 million versus 182 million expected. Net loss $684 million versus $780 million in the last quarter. Same quarter last year. $2.17 billion of cash on hand. Okay. Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas shared his Tesla FSD supervised 12.3.6 experience. Here are his initial impressions. I pinned Sawyer's tweet at the top of our screens. Adam says, cautious when it needs to be, assertive when it should be, seems to demonstrate a heightened sensitivity to pedestrians and things associated with pedestrians, i.e. crosswalks, smoother actuation, overall noticeable improvement from prior tested version 12.3.4. Adam predicts Tesla's vehicle fleet should be driving a collective 100 billion miles a year by late 2025 run rates. By late 2025. That's approximately 11.6 million hours over 3,200 miles per second. And then there's 2 pages attached to the tweet at the top of our screens. Let me just skim through this. See if there's anything in here that we talk about. Okay, nothing there. Audi has launched a direct-to-consumer sales strategy in UK for its EVs. Volvo cars April sales rise on strong EV demand. Volvo said sales of full electric cars were up 94% and accounted for 26% of all sales globally in the month of April. All right. Wes Hicks, go ahead.
What's happening?
Much. What's new with you?
It's a lot of good stuff. Nothing too noteworthy. I did want to come up to say one thing. I had an interesting experience the other day. You were kind of part of it. Grant, who I believe he's a listener right now, hosted a room for Tesla Q, Spaces, or hosted a Tesla Q space, if you will. And it was really interesting. I'd like to see more of that, just to kind of see what these people think and what they say. But I had one big takeaway. I'll give you a little context if we got a little time.
Yeah, go ahead. I was
Okay.
removed from the space, so I don't know what was said.
I saw that. Yeah, I was about to hand it off to you. I was making a point about Wes and Meta and the kind of value in machine that they add. Anyways, and I was just going to turn it over to you to kind of get into that. But anyway, so here's my big observation: is I got in there with the intent of just learning things. Look, if people have a different view on this than I do, my thought is, okay, great. What is it that you think? And I've been doing this for about 7 years now, meaning I've been investing heavily in Tesla. And my first 3 years, I used to debate bears very heavily in Facebook groups. And so, it was pretty contentious from 2017 to 2020. And I don't know, man, it was hot, if you will. But I no longer share. I'm not like seeking to kind of take someone down or whatever, at least not all the time. And so I got in there and I learned that, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. I learned that maybe it's just natural for bears not to invest as much time as a passionate bull would on learning about a company. Meaning, I'm so passionate about Tesla. I spend 8-10 hours a day just consuming information about Tesla because I love it. It's really effortless. It's kind of what I do. It's my dopamine. I bet many other people in this space right now can probably relate to that. And I've been doing it for a long time. And so when I was in there, people started arguing with me, and I would ask them questions. There were really only three speakers. It was Grant and two other guys. And they're like, one guy was just full throated. Tesla doesn't have a chance in China because there's 8 other companies over there that. How could Tesla possibly stand up to that when those 8 companies are going to beat them? And they were talking about FSD. And I was like, well, who are those companies, and are they using AI? Because I had, of course they're doing ADAS in China, right? Of course, but I was just curious, like, who are these big competitors? And the guy's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, well, oh, you just said that these people were going to crush Tesla, and so a few of these conversations took place, and then I realized they're working with basically, for at least from the small sample set, these people are largely working with the knowledge of an article that's probably clickbait. As our society is kind of deteriorated, the media in particular is deteriorated, where everything's just clicks and views, like Electra, whatever it is. And these people really don't know much else except for some salacious articles, and which was disappointing, to be honest, because I thought maybe I'd learn something that would give me some value, about Tesla. But that was my big takeaway: is bears, I guess, just don't. They're not going to spend the kind of time that a bull would learning about a company. And I should have known that. It sounds obvious now, but
Okay, you
now
made
it's
your
like,
point. Okay, I got you.
okay,
Made your same point 5 times.
okay, there you go.
Omar, what is this SEC filing with Sawyer in there?
Well, I believe they're required to have an SEC filing for anything that is related to the shareholder vote. And Elon retweeted Sawyer saying, please vote and let us know if you have any issues. So an SEC filing just came through in my inbox with a screenshot of Elon's tweet quoting Sawyer. Regulations are pretty weird.
Yeah. Let's see what else.
It was interesting, some of the Fed officials' comments this morning and like some of the market reaction. I do really think that the market is obviously viewing Tesla as an interest rate sensitive stock. And as the rates do come down, whether it's in, September or December, that's really the moment the market is waiting for, I think.
Do you think there will be a rate cut by September? Is that what you mean?
I hope so. It
Okay.
does seem like there's some factors that make it look like the economy is. It's a little bit early to tell for sure what the impact of that is, but that's kind of what they need to have a reason to cut. We need to see some slowness. And just look at all the layoffs at Tesla, for example, and they're not the only ones. We've seen layoffs at Google, we've seen layoffs at Volkswagen. When you lay people off, they don't spend as much. Inflation cools. The Fed's dual mandate is price stability and maximize unemployment. When unemployment's higher, less people are getting jobs, and inflation's cooling, then their mandate requires them to bring rates down to maximize employment, and prices are already stable. So it's kind of a good sign from that perspective. We do need a little bit of weakness to set the stage for a cut looking justified.
Yoda.
Yeah, I think we've all been living under this restricted interest rate climate for a long time that we forgot the boom cycle and coffee bet that I think in the fall we're gonna see the first rate cut, 25 basis point.
Elon apparently is going to be on Bloomberg in 3 hours. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Maybe he would make an announcement about a large Nvidia purchase or something potentially, if that's actually going to happen.
Omar, was there some news related to that or?
Just a rumor I heard. So, if he is going on TV, maybe it's something he would mention.
Do we know if he is?
That's what Mayor tweeted, but I haven't seen anything else about it other than that tweet from Mayor.
I mean, what's his basis for it?
I imagine that he was watching Bloomberg TV and they mentioned it or something.
Hmm.
We need to get Ron Barons and Warren Buffett on a lunch date
Yoda, what do you think is the probability that Warren Buffett would buy into Tesla stock? Like, let's say
Zero.
this year.
Zero.
I can't believe like people are even thinking that this is possible.
-5.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it's
Trust me, you do not want Warren to buy into Tesla stock. If he's buying, that means you're fucking broke already. Okay, you're living in a shoebox as a Tesla investor. If it's gotten down to a price where Warren Buffett is considering buying in.
You know, I was surprised that at their annual Berkshire shareholders meeting that Warren spoke about FSD like he researched into it, but unfortunately, you know, his ears are filled by the voices of Geico management and you know, energy executives from traditional energy. So there's zero chance that he's going to invest in Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, the guy even published his kind of like specific guidelines, and I don't think Tesla meets any of them, let alone even all of them.
The only thing that can thread the needle is that Warren Buffett, you know, prefers management that are great capital allocators, and so there is a thread where he could see beyond the noise. He could see beyond the technology that he can't comprehend and sees Elon as a capital allocator, which he's great at. But it's not possible.
Not even close. Not even close.
I mean, it's just not his style, you know? It's like you find somebody who invests in small multifamily apartment homes in, low-income areas, and you ask them if they're interested in buying a skyscraper in Manhattan. It's a very different type of investing.
Exactly. And he wants predictable cash flows. There's nothing predictable about Tesla's cash flow. Adopt dog, go ahead.
Hey everybody. First to Omar's comment about everyone living in cardboard boxes, I would just like to remind everyone that Tesla is the most livable car of any car on the market, right? Second of all, Warren will not be buying any Tesla. Like Yaman, I know you're a big fan of Warren's, an OG Berkshire shareholder. But he does get credit for buying BYD. Let's give him some credit. He helped like arguably the number 2 get legitimate, get capital, and build a lot of cars, and that's part of the mission.
Okay, but first of all, Charlie Munger was the one who, I guess, had to initiate and convince him to buy BYD. And secondly, BYD and Tesla have very critical differences that make one possible investment for Warren and the other not really. This is not to say, he has surprised before with his investment decisions, especially with Apple. But even then, I saw that coming actually, that Warren Buffett would invest in Apple, that Apple became a good value style investing rather than growth investing. That everyone saw it at the time until Warren Buffett came in. But I can tell you this, right now, the way Tesla is fundamentals is just not up his alley at all, not even close. So. Yoda?
Yeah, the closest thing they mentioned, I think, was on the shareholders meeting. I forget the manager's name, but he was talking about them looking at stationary batteries. But I think, again, they're looking at probably other suppliers. And Warren did mention that Bill Gates, his friend, is doing some research or working in that area. But I think energy is, again, maybe where the paths will cross at some point.
No. Bill Gates is into nuclear energy type of stuff, and he actually went out of his way he said something like a lot of smart people are doing research, including Bill Gates, and he named a couple of people, and he went out of his way to not name Elon Musk, which is, or Tesla in that situation. And people in my replies are like, "Oh, he's talking about Tesla, dude. He got asked about Tesla. Obviously, he's gonna talk about Tesla when he gets asked about Tesla." So I highly recommend people to watch the 6 hours that this was on before starting to share their opinions based on a couple of tweets they saw. Okay. And I'm looking at his acquisition criteria that he gave his acquisition criteria because he gets a lot of, obviously, Berkshire Hathaway gets a lot of suggestions. You should buy this company, you should buy that company, etc. And this is his just preliminary criteria that all companies must meet. Otherwise, there's no way he will buy into it. Okay, just like preliminary, before 10 other steps, let's say 100 other steps. Every private equity company has this kind of criteria. They publish on their websites. Okay. And Berkshire Hathaway's are: one, large purchases at least $50 million before tax. So that meets that. So 1 of 6. 2, demonstrated consistent earnings power. Where is that? Where is that? What's consistent about Tesla's earnings? It's not like Coca-Cola, that you pretty much know to 1%, 1% range, what the unit sales are going to be, what the prices are going to be for several quarters ahead. Can you say that about Tesla? No. 3, businesses earning good returns on equity while employing little to or no debt. Yeah, little to no debt, fine, but there's no good return on equity right now in Tesla, and there hasn't been. And 1 quarter is not enough. 1 year is not enough. It has to be. And by the way, 2-3 years may not even be enough. It has to be throughout a cycle, economic cycle, which can be 10 years plus. 4, management in place. Fine, you can make arguments about whether they would like Elon's style or that. 5, simple businesses. So to the extent that anybody's forecast includes Optimus, FSD, robotaxis, he's not going to see that as a simple business until it's in place. 6, and offering price. So for shares, that's how the market price. So no earnings consistency, not a simple business, no cycle of positive earnings and good return on equity. None of this is applicable. And this is the preliminary list. All right. Yoda?
Agreed on all those. And I'm sure Elon knows the mismatch as well that you've named. So I'm curious, why would Elon be so forward, as in saying that he should take a position in Tesla and that it's an obvious move? What's obvious about it for Warren? I don't get it.
He's just tweeting about something in the news. That's all it is. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is always good if you can get headlines that people won't click on that mention Warren Buffett and your company's name in a lead. I mean, I think that was his goal.
Just for fun.
So I was just joining. Did you just call me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think this was mentioned yet, just to sort of hammer the point home. At one point, Warren specifically he answered a question about EVs. And I'm reading from a transcript. This might not be exactly right because I don't know who created this transcript exactly, but someone asked, "Do you see any opportunities in this space, either in he said increasingly it seems like zero emission vehicles may have reached a cusp. Do you see any opportunities? And then Warren himself, he said, even though we have relevant interests in energy, BYD, et cetera, and there's massive adoption has been a moving target, but Berkshire would not be. I don't think we bring any special talent to that field. You've got vehicle manufacturers, and I would certainly not know how to pick the winners in an industry like that.
That's just a nice way of saying no.
Yeah, no, exactly. But he specifically said that yesterday, so I don't know why everyone's like creating all these false hopes.
Yeah. Anything that will make the stock go up, basically. Omar, what do you think?
It's a comment he's made before. It's an idle comment. He's talking up his own book. Yeah, Warren Buffett should invest in Tesla. Anyone who knows Buffett knows he's not going to invest in Tesla, right? He looks for great values. I don't think, he says, look, our job as investors is not to assess tech companies and figure out which has the best technology. Other people know how to do that. We don't do that. Apple was actually a very unusual investment for him. But they said, look, we know there's a lot of deals we're going to miss out on. We look at what we're competent in. We understand business. We're great capital allocators. We can see the value in these businesses. We're not, sort of speculative technology investors. And that's okay. You kind of have to just do what you know how to do and how you know how to make money ultimately. And he's obviously done extremely well. Someday, maybe Tesla could be, a Berkshire investment. Let's say, there were very predictable revenues coming from Robotaxi or Optimus or something that were, pretty consistent over several years, maybe. Like you look at where they got into Apple, for example, they were very, very late into the process. And, BYD, for example, BYD was at a $2 billion valuation when they took a stake. And they bought $220 million worth of shares. They bought 10% of the company. If they were to put $220 million into Tesla, that would be like 0.03% of Tesla, right? So it's a little bit of a different situation. And they've cut back on their BYD stake recently.
Yeah, there's just so much misinformation out there about this company. Berkshire Hathaway is crazy. A little quick litmus test is whenever you see BUFFET, somebody who says BUFFET could do this and that, just ignore that person at all costs. Just literally turn around and run away because they don't even know how to spell the guy's last name. And that's 99% of the tweets about Warren Buffett. They can't even spell his last name. Okay. And they claim to know this guy. Like, for example, nobody in the reply says, Warren Buffett, oh my gosh, he can't even spell first name, but I'm guessing this typo, would be advocating spending money on buybacks instead of H100s. This is not correct. He's pretty much a passive investor. He doesn't get involved, meddling with the management decisions. He's not an active investor like Carl. Like he wouldn't tell management do this, do that. So, and that's like 99% of the tweets that I've seen about this topic. Stephen?
Hey, so a few speakers ago, we had Wes on who said he's been studying Tesla for the past 7 years, and that's why he's confident in investing in Tesla. I'm just wondering, how is he getting the information about Tesla with as much FUD as there is out there? It seems like, we don't know what's true, what's not. Is he just getting it from Tesla specifically, or is he also using Elon as a source?
Who are you talking about?
Wes. I forget his name,
But
but he
we're
was on
talking about
like 10
something
minutes
else
ago.
right now. We're talking about something else right now. You're changing topics, and
I'm
you
not, I'm
request to
not.
speak 20 times.
I'm not.
Quality is really low today. Too low. Omar, is there anything else we're going to talk about?
I don't know. I was looking at this video Sandy Monroe posted about the layoffs. I didn't see what he said yet, though.
Is this on Monroe and Associates?
Yeah, Monroe Live underscore
Live
Monroe is the account. I just watched the beginning. He said, this is about business, not emotions. I've run business. I want to give you a different take on this. And
Do you want to play for us?
Yeah, let me get the William up here. You can play it. Or I could just play it through my computer. Let's see.
Yeah, through your computer is fine.
All right.
Hey, boys and girls. Thanks for watching Monroe Live. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what everybody seems to be talking about. It doesn't make any sense to me that everybody's so excited about this news about the charging systems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my take, and it's going to be entirely different than everybody else's, because I actually ran businesses. I worked at the big OEMs. I worked everywhere. And you know what? When you have to make some hard decisions or some smart decisions for the investors, the people who own the companies, you wind up doing things that may be a little controversial. So today, I'm going to talk about business, not emotion. I'm not into emotion. I am not a celebrity. I don't believe in romance, gut feel, or any of that other shit. I'm only looking at what's going on right now. So let's talk about business, and let's say Ford, GM, Apteria, Rivian, and a whole bunch of other folks are now using that system. They're your customers. Do you need a marketing and sales team? Why? Why? To have them sitting around doing what? I mean, now the system, the Tesla system is everywhere. Everybody's going to be using it. Why do I need a sales team? There may be other guys, but you don't. And if your chargers are the best on the planet, and that's the truth, and they're running at 99.9 uptime, 99.9% uptime, what do you need an R&D and a new product development team for? These are as good as you're ever going to get. Sooner or later, you reach a point where, you know what? Nothing you do is going to make it an improvement. And that's where they are with the Tesla charging system. So if you're an engineer and the project comes to an end, you find a new job. If you're in sales and marketing and you don't need that anymore, you go and find a new job. That's just the way it works. So let's go and talk a little bit more. If you remove engineering, the engineering team and the marketing team, will the execs that manage them, will they be necessary? Are you just going to keep them hanging around? Look, at the end of the day, when things change, you have to change with them. The company has to change. Sometimes if you're on the layoff list, and I have been several times, it is what it is, and that's the way it goes. You just move on. Will the efficiency drop? What are you kidding me? if you remove people from the areas that are become redundant, why in the world would the efficiency drop? I don't know where this shit's coming from, but I can tell you one thing for sure. It's baloney. 100% baloney. If I don't have these people, I don't need supervisors, I don't need managers, I don't need directors, and I certainly don't need VPs. Well, will you still be able to keep the customers happy? What makes the customers happy? They want to get up and plug in. That's what they want. That's all they want. They want to be able to get up and plug in. And have people been like sleeping? Elon said he'll be building more stations. I don't need engineers and I don't need marketing people if all I'm going to do is pick up things that are being manufactured. He didn't say anything about shutting down. He didn't say anything about shutting down manufacturing. He said he's going to populate those areas where he sees the biggest need. And that means that wherever you are, in whatever city or town you're in, the charging station that you have will get bigger. And the reason for that is because Elon's already put in all the charging equipment that he needs. This guy thinks like a mile ahead. He's not a checker player. He's a chess player. He already figured that this is going to eventually happen, and he's planned for it. So he's going to put it in areas where there's a high charge need. Why would Elon do this? Because it's the right thing to do. He's the CEO or president or whatever title he's got. That means that he has a fiduciary duty to the people who put their money and good faith into the company. A fiduciary duty. What does that mean? That means that you put the company above everything else, including your family. That's why there's so many divorces. When you get up high, you wind up spending all your time at work. A fiduciary duty is not just a title, it's actually a law. You can go to jail if you're in a position of fiduciary duty and you bankrupt the company or whatever. Chances are good you're going to find yourself on the wrong end of the bars. And he's just doing his job. He's making money for shareholders. If you don't need the people to do whatever, if they're just standing around doing nothing, you move on. Okay? There have been many layoffs at every other OEM out there. And why did they lay people off? Because they're stupid. They didn't plan ahead. They said, "Oh, we're going to get into electrification and whatnot." Then Wall Street said something, and what did they do? They peed their pants and laid off everybody. That is not smart. As far as I'm concerned, that's not basically acting in a fiduciary business. You're not supposed to just cut and run because someone, somewhere said, "Oh, well, you're not making enough money." Eventually, you have to invest. Eventually, you have to be capable of seeing what the future might be, and you bank on the future, not the next quarter. So these guys, the guys that are basically shutting down their EV operations and running like scared children, they're going to be in trouble later on. But you know who's going to be happy? And this is the other reason that Elon Musk basically did what he did, because of Wall Street and the Fed. Here's a ticket, ladies and gentlemen. I'm old, so I've watched this happen a dozen times. When the average person is suffering, the Fed and Wall Street makes a shitload of money. They get bonuses up the yin-yang by making you miserable. That's the way it works. And if companies fall into the stupid trap, if they go into the stupid trap and actually listen to the people of Wall Street who know nothing except how to make a big bonus, and the Fed who, here's a little something, the Fed isn't even part of the United States. It's British banks. And when this happens, when they decided, well, things are too good for you, we're gonna kick your ass by increasing the interest rate on the loans that you're going to make. Oh, make it so you can't afford a mortgage and whatnot. They get a bonus for that. That's what they do for a living. That's how they make their money, by making you miserable.
Wow.
So
What the hell's going on here?
every time I pick up a newspaper or a magazine that talks about Elon Musk, it's the same old crap. Look around. Look around. This is information. This is data. This is analytics. This is money. How much does it cost? How much can be built? What's the characteristics? Has it been tested? All this other crap. And yet, some moron will come on CNN or whatever channel. I don't know. They're all under the bus as far as I'm concerned, and say things that just aren't true. This is what they do. If it bleeds, it leads. This is the only rule in the media. How do they sell papers? Fear. When you listen to it, what are you, out of your mind? Look at, you have to start thinking. You have to start thinking when they say that, oh, the whole world's going to come to an end. What's it? They're trying to sell newspapers. And remember, today's news is tomorrow's, that's where you put the scrap from cleaning fish. At the end of the day, there's nothing that Elon did on this that's anything but good business and good business planning. Now, I got all upset because I'm sick and tired of we have to be careful about what we see, what we hear, and how we interpret it. These guys basically want to pick your pocket if it's Wall Street or if it's the Fed. These guys in the news, all they want to do is sell newspapers, and they know how to catch your attention. We call it clickbait now, right? Well, they do it a little differently. They think that if they skip some of the stuff that could make your life happy and bring in something that'll make you miserable, fear will take over and you'll buy 2 newspapers. Who knows? But I will tell you one thing. Elon Musk is the greatest person on the planet right now. Nobody else out there, nobody has made a rocket ship that'll go to Mars. Nobody out there has made electrification a reality. You look at that magnificent piece back there. Even if you don't like the look of the Cybertruck, look inside. Who the hell? Who else is going to be able to push 48 volts, which we should have done in the 1960s? Who else is going to give you an Ethernet a ring that eliminates a giant amount of CAN bus? Who else is going to give you rear wheel steering? Who else is going to give you steer by wire? Nobody. Why? Because they don't have the brains, they don't have the guts, and they will never take a risk. Never. The Boring Company, the satellite dishes, all these things come from one guy. And what do these guys want to do? Make it bleed. Make it bleed. Everything they possibly can. They're going to throw them under the bus. But here's the deal. In 100 years, no one will remember any of these jerks. And I'm telling you right now, you should stop believing in them. Today would be a good day. Because at the end of the day, Elon Musk is the man of this century for sure. Okay, now I got to go and take a rest. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Wow. That's a rental,
That
right?
was interesting.
Mm-hmm. What did you say about the Fed? It's not American. Is that what you said?
I think you said they're British banks or something.
Yeah. Yeah, this question comes up so often that they actually have an FAQ on who owns the Federal Reserve on the Fed's page. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
The Fed is a private bank that's owned by the government and Federal Reserve member banks. So the board of governors is people from the private banks and also government appointees. So it's like the government's bank. So it's kind of like a private bank, but also is where the government keeps its money. And
Yeah,
they print
and
money
they
and stuff.
report to the Congress. I mean,
Right, and it's designed so that they're insulated from political issues. They don't want them to set monetary policy based on politics. So, it's kind of difficult to fire a Federal Reserve governor, for example.
Right. But to say that they're owned by British banks is wild. Machine.
Yeah, some of that I think was a little bit off base. Like, I don't think that it's true that they don't need R&D anymore. Like, they don't need middle management, but I think they definitely need engineering and R&D. And I would be surprised if they let those people go.
Yeah, I think.
It's a really fascinating time to try to evaluate Tesla, the stock. You have all this pumping of FSD and Optimus going on by speakers here and the CEO, and there's a lot of progress there. Meanwhile, the automotive fundamentals of the company are, well, I wouldn't say deteriorating, but they're definitely flatlined. I mean, the latest data coming out from Troy and from Europe registrations are just showing very simply that demand is stagnated against the idea people had that the supply chain issues were causing issues in Q1 that would be resolved in Q2. And we're simply not seeing that. And it just seems like it's going to be, for the rest of this year, very flat earnings outside of anything going up for Tesla Energy. So I'm just curious, Yaman, how are you valuing the company currently?
How many times are you asking me this question? A million times.
I like to do it like once a week. What do you think? Let me ask you. We've argued, or actually agreed on, maybe automotive and energy. So, what do you think is fair present day value of FSD?
Like FSD is ADAS, or can you elaborate some more?
The entirety of FSD is ADAS and robotaxi. Obviously, you have to assign certain weightings, probabilities that they're going to happen, and discount backwards. So, what do you assign a fair present day value for the likelihood that those things happen in the future?
Well, I think the likelihood is high for FSD take rate to increase substantially, and Tesla to eventually start a robotaxi service, have some sort of cost advantage over Waymo, scalability advantage, and everything. And I think more importantly, FSD is the basis for developing Optimus. I think all those things are true. But I also see how the market today just doesn't believe any of that stuff. And,
but it must believe some of it, right? Because there's probably in excess of $300 billion of valuation that implies either value of FSD or future earnings growth a few years out from automotive, but nothing over the next few years. So I don't know. I'm just trying to, from of course, I'm more of a trader now, trying to evaluate this, and the swings are hard to see of where it's going to go. It's hard to see it going up a lot right now from here unless FSD hits another level.
Omar?
I was just at CarMax when this space started. My dad went and he sold our old Mercedes E-Class that my mom used to drive, and so he sold it to CarMax. They paid him about $34,000 for it, and I went there to pick him up because he drove the car there, and I just went and I walked around the lot, and it was a very different scene than a few years ago, where you had an empty lot, and the cars that were there on the lot were, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 cars, the few that were available, even if they were just a normal car like a Corolla or a Prius or something. And now the lot was actually filled with cars, like to the brim. There were extra cars. They ran out of parking spots, so they had some cars that were just kind of hanging around. And this time it was, 12,000, 15,000, 25,000. I couldn't even find something that was over 40,000. I had I saw a 2016 Cadillac, and that one was around 36,000. So it's a very different auto market from when there was a shortage. And this has been vastly over dramatized. You know, I think when you really look at the core earnings power of the automotive business, I think it's very strong. Just because there's a little bit of a weakness in automotive right now as the market normalizes. And yeah, okay, obviously, when there were no other cars available, people wanted to buy a lot of EVs. Those were available. And now that supply has returned and the market has changed, things have slowed down a little bit. And that looks bad. Earnings are contracting. There's definitely, a lot of pressure on pricing as pricing comes down from those sort of shortage levels. But I mean, just look at this business. I mean, this is a business that anybody would die to have, the automotive business. They've got products like, the Cybertruck, the new Model 3 and Y, these new affordable models. I think when you look at really what the core earnings power of the automotive business is over, say, the next 5 to 10 years in a monetary environment that's less restrictive than the current levels, I think it is going to be probably the top earning automotive business in the world by far. Leave aside FSD or robotaxi or anything speculative like that.
If you replaced Toyota with Tesla in terms of volume of cars and margins, which, by the way, Toyota's operating margin was higher than Tesla's in the last few quarters. Obviously, there's some OPEX, CAPEX expenditures there for Tesla that are way higher. That'll be cut back. But, Toyota has a market cap of under 400 billion. And so, if you attribute similar automotive sort of margins and volume, your upside from an automotive standpoint in terms of valuation is not much versus the current market cap for Tesla. So it's, again, really coming back to FSD and Optimus in terms of hoping that this share price appreciates significantly. I just want to mention one other point while I'm here. I realized, Meta's not here, but just to have it on the record, I was looking at the FSD beta tracker, and he's been trying to use that as rationale for why we're already at L4. And he's going on the latest version of 12.3.6 in California, has 100% drives without a critical disengagement over about a little over 1,000 miles. But if you look at the recent versions, 12.3.5, 12.3.4, 12.3.3, they all have less than 100% of the drives. They're like 94, 97%. And these values are not at a level near.
Dude, there's so many problems with those claims. I mean, not your claims, but I'm saying there's so many problems with what it's stating. It's like, I'm not even trying to argue. I'm just staring at the situation. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in awe. Like, my jaw has dropped that he's actually claiming to win this bet. It's wild. First of all, Tesla FSD tracker is not the basis for this bet. Okay, I don't think we ever mentioned that it would be the basis. Secondly, I don't think it was just California. We talked about US. Okay, that you would either be capable of doing zero, like you wouldn't even have to pay attention. But regulation-wise, let's say NAGs are part of the regulation. Okay, we're not even talking about that. But I mean, Miss Julianne's posting video after video of safety critical disengagements every single day almost. And she's in California, right? On that tracker, it says 80%. Like, if you're talking about 100% safety critical disengagement, not to mention that it's probably just 5 people entering. And who knows what the definition of safety critical disengagements are. And then secondly, there are disengagements. If you look at the next column, it's 80% for no disengagement drives. And it's wild that I just I don't think.
Anyways, I don't want to pick on him because he's not here, but I just thought it was disingenuous to only look at the latest version over 1,000 miles and assume.
I mean, how are the old versions relevant? Let's look at version 11 then.
Because
a lot of people are still on
I'll
version
tell you
11.
how it's not relevant. I'll tell you how.
Like
Because
half
it's
the
not
fleet's still on
statistically
version 11.
significant.
Is it just 1,000 miles on this version recorded? And then how many people recorded those miles?
For California, I don't know.
Yeah. And didn't we talk about like you're gonna have to see like months and months, like you won't be able to find a disengagement on YouTube and this and that. Like, I mean, like this is comical level absurdity. It's not even close to be like it's not even a close call. We don't need a photo finish.
It's fascinating.
This is obvious. It is fascinating
to see this psychological divergence between people, which I predicted much well before months ago that this would happen, because people would get in the car and experience it's amazing software. It's very amazing. No one's arguing with that. But the difference between amazing and highly reliable are actually vastly different, even though you may not perceive it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we're seeing this play out, that you have people, even Wes is conservative with his estimates, and he's saying he hasn't seen a critical disengagement in however many months, days, and I believe him. I do believe him, but it doesn't matter. It's still in aggregate what matters, and there's way too much evidence that there's critical disengagements in too high of a frequency, way too high, for people to think, done, we did it, we're done, mission accomplished. Meta would hold up a mission accomplished sign in front of a massive Navy cruise ship if he could right now. It would be the embarrassment of the century.
So, first
off, I
think
think I think at the end of the day, you're going to be able to say to the question, would you put your kid in the back seat? And I understand Omar said yes. Okay. But if we ask 100 random people, would they put their kids on the back seat? I guarantee you, 90 plus will say no. And the other 10 will have some sort of, it's just comical.
Omar doesn't have kids. His kid is his Game Boy.
Omar?
So first off, I think Tesla looks like it's on track to do more units at a higher margin than Toyota on the auto business alone, excluding software and everything else, I think. So if Toyota's worth, $380 billion, I think Tesla could be worth more than that on the auto business alone. And, you guys are technically right, but I think you're kind of missing the forest for the trees here a little bit. You kind of have to look beyond the spreadsheet. It literally is just reliably doing every single drive with zero interventions for me. It's a level 4 system. And, these other systems, they don't let you do many of the things that Tesla lets you do. So, for example, you can only use it within a certain area. You can't take it without the area. You can't choose what route it's doing, right? So they'll kind of pick the one route that they know works. And Tesla will do that too. But, you have people who go and they try and challenge it on purpose, and that's great. But it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. What I'm seeing is, you can do a drive and every single drive I've done for the past few days, they're all zero intervention. And some pretty crazy stuff can happen and it just handles it. So that's why I was like, honestly, like if you told me like I had to sit in the back seat or something, I know that I probably wouldn't die. And the interventions that I have are not like, oh my God, it was about to hit a tree kind of intervention. It's more like, oh, okay, it wasn't going around the truck or something like that, right? So there really is an incredible amount of progress just on 12.3.6. Then we've got 12.4 that people are running, which adds the ability to reverse. It adds a much more powerful model. People who've tried it have told me like, whoa, this thing just does not mess up. And it's going to be operating driverlessly in parking lots. Like, I mean, is that level 2? What is that, right? So, I wouldn't laugh at him too much, because this thing is just getting so good. It's unbelievable. I mean, you heard the space yesterday, even Miss Jillian and everybody, and I don't think anyone's trying to claim you're not going to have any interventions at all. But
Bet
I mean,
is.
this. Well, I mean,
That's
obviously.
the bet. That is the bet. Are you
No,
serious?
I mean,
that was the bet, that there would be no necessary disengagements. Like you could,
No, I
if it was
mean,
allowed legally, that you'd be able to sit in the back and it would take you from point A to point B, if allowed by regulations.
I mean,
And
Waymo has human intervention. Sometimes they have people who come and pick up the car, but they're still level 4, right? So, I mean, it's really kind of a very blurry line. I mean, this system can do things that Waymo and others just can't do.
I agree with you on that, Machine.
I think the nature of the bet was that this thing would be highly reliable overall, and Meta even is trying to support that with, loose numbers. But anyways, we all agree it's great software. It's going to get better. I'm wondering. I just have to say, Omar, I apologize for making fun of you in the tweet. Not because I feel bad personally, but just because whenever I do that, and then a lot of people like it, I go look, and like 30% of them are obvious Tesla Q bears, and it makes me feel bad a bit. So I apologize for that.
I mean, I don't actually care about that, but you just sort of laughing and saying it's not level 4, it's not reliable enough. That actually kind of bothers me, because it's literally just doing every drive. So you guys are like laughing, and I get it. Yeah, obviously it's not level 4 yet, but it's so good that I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, by the end of May, it could, do a ride with 0 interventions 100 times out of 100 times.
So you are upset when I say it's not level 4, but then you just go ahead and said yourself, it's not level 4.
I might get into my backseat, honestly.
So wait, listen. This is what I want to ask you before, is if you could, would you throw Elon Musk in the back seat of a Tesla if you could accelerate and have it run 100,000 miles with him in the back seat, city and highway, in like a week? Would you do that? Would you put him in the back seat for 100,000 miles?
I think that he would probably survive. I don't think that he would die. So it really is getting pretty good. Like, I'm in this sort of gated community where my parents live right now, and I'm kind of thinking, like, maybe I should just go in the back seat and have it like go to the other end of the gated complex. Like, that's probably not illegal, is it? And I bet it would just, work fine, obviously.
As long as there's no record of you planning this out beforehand. Oh, wait.
I just about died laughing when he said I'd survive. Like, what, the accident? Like, is that what we're shooting for now? Survivability? Like,
you guys don't get it. It is doing every single drive without intervention. Even if something crazy happens, people run into the road, the coast is eroding, the cliff, it's falling off the cliff. Doesn't matter. Curvy roads, you name it. Everything. It's doing it.
I don't disagree with you and your personal car, but like, my car handles drives okay. If you go into my wife's Model Y, I'm literally cursing all the time at it and be like, this piece of shit isn't working. Like, it's not actually working. It doesn't work in her Model Y.
I mean, where do you live?
The Midwest, in Minnesota, St. Paul, Twin Cities.
This is kind of like the double standard, right? So for Waymo, we only look at their performance in this really tiny area. But then if it's working for me without intervention, then people go, oh, well, that's just one tiny area. Some guy in the Midwest, it's not working for him. Well, how does Waymo work in the Midwest? Oh, they don't even let you try it in the Midwest. So we're really kind of not making an apples to apples comparison.
I don't think so, because Miss Jillian is in California, right?
The measurable argument is a flawed argument.
The question, I asked a question. Miss Jillian is in California, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're not just talking about your one data point, Omar. We're talking about, if you guys are limited to California, fine, let's talk about California. Let's bring up here 100 people from California. I bet you I can bring up 100 people up the speaker board from California and
No,
have them tell me that they haven't had a disengagement in how many days you said?
no, I'm not trying to claim there are no interventions possible or there's no way to have a disengagement. I'm just saying that it's a lot more reliable than I think you guys realize here. Like it literally just
I don't mind that. I don't dispute that. But yeah, again, I don't think this was a one city kind of thing either. I think this was a nationwide. I mean, literally in the bet it says in the U.S. Okay, that's in the bet. There's no other reason to put that in the bet unless to say it's nationwide.
All I know is at the end of the day, Tesla's going to have a lot more data than Waymo because they're doing this nationwide and it's going to get better. And for an example, there's a turn where my car was constantly taking a right turn into the shoulder and it thought the shoulder was the lane. And I didn't ever report it. And then I finally reported it yesterday. And guess what? I took the same turn today and it was fixed. It's never repeated this step over again.
Tesla will triple in 2022.
Thank you. Can you guys bring in Ken, the attorney, to arbitrate this argument? Because I think
No,
this is the
I
only
am
way
the
we will
arbitrator.
figure
I
it
am the
out.
arbitrator. I am the judge. I am the jury. Okay, that's it. Sid,
I was going to say that I have a similar experience as Holmars has. I've been driving the FSD since 2019. I've been a beta tester all along. Had it on my S, then now it's my X. I just did a 700 mile trip to New Jersey and back. I live in Northern Virginia. I had zero interventions throughout the whole drive, and even within New Jersey, I drove a lot internally. I had never had to take it over. So I've had exactly the same experience that Hallmark is talking about. So I'm not sure if it varies from a vehicle to vehicle, but mine is a X, and it's doing really well.
you're in California, Model X, and you do not have a disengagement. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm in Virginia, and I went to New Jersey and
Okay.
came back for the 700-mile trip. No disengagement at all.
Okay. What about your other trips?
That's why I'm saying I drive around over in Virginia, no disengagement at all.
Do you have Tesla insurance?
No, I don't.
Do you have a screen that says this is how many miles you drove on Tesla FSD?
I don't know how to do that. I would love to do that.
Omar?
Yeah, I think Miss Jillian came on the space yesterday and she said that, she tries to find issues where she can break it, right? So that's important too. And, a lot of people want to look for something where they can have an intervention so they can show that and they can further the progress of the software. But really, when you just actually use it to do the things you actually have to do, it's very good at doing the normal things, right? You really try and pile on a lot of weird stuff. Yes, you can make it fail without too much difficulty. But the common things that you actually have to do, it's nailing those.
Just like I nailed. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I got full self-driving 11.4.9. That's the most I can get. I just checked again on my 2018 Model S, and I've been driving on these dirt roads out here in Winnemucca, Nevada, and it's been doing amazing. I've been loving it, but I just had to say something because the guy said that the car thought that it was an extra lane. The same thing happened to me today on my way back. The side of the road was flooded, and it was perfectly mirrored by the sky. It was perfectly still water, and the car thought that it was a lane and thought that it would switch into that lane. And luckily, I was paying attention because my back tire totally was throwing water. It was gonna totally just drive off the road. So that was my experience. But again, only 11.4.9.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy?
Now imagine that when you're sitting there on the side of the road waiting for your robo-taxi to come and it's actually halfway down the river.
Mission.
I think we'll know when L4 is soon upon us when Omar lets me take his car to drive it as long as I want to, as long as it's on FSD. For record, he would not let me sit behind the steering wheel when he took me on the 12.3 trip. Think about that. Think deeply about that. The trust he had in the system.
I will
Well, I don't
have
let
to.
anybody drive my car, manual or autopilot.
I do want to say that there is some truth to what Omar said about if you're doing your daily normal thing, the car seems to be better when I like redo those same routes over and over. But then when I get out in my Model 3 to places I don't usually go, but I do go, I get interventions. But on an everyday to day, it is pretty good.
I mean, they got 37,000 H100s. They're going to have 85,000 installed by the end of the year. I heard a rumor that they just ordered another 100,000 H200s, and they've started taking delivery, and they're going to take delivery of them over the next 12 months. So, you take all this compute, they can train the models faster, they can try more things. You've got 1 million people using it. They have more interventions. First billion miles took 3 years. Second billion miles will take 2 or 3 months, right? They're adding all this compute. We've got 12.4 coming. Like, this is a level 4 system, essentially. It's getting that good. And obviously, yes, there's still interventions. There's interventions here in California. There's interventions everywhere. I'm not trying to say there aren't. But it's really getting that good. And they're training an unsupervised version of the model for use on the robotaxi. So this model will have slightly different behaviors given that it's designed to not have a driver behind the wheel. Different failback scenarios.
It's so good. It's so good that you have to drop prices.
When did you become not super bullish? Is this my fault? What happened to you, Yaman?
I mean, if it's
I
that
mean, it's
good
so
that you can put your kid in the bank, why do they have to have the price?
it's so good that they could cut prices. Because
Oh my
before
God.
it was high because it was so bad. Now they actually want people to use it. And this is actually going to cause their revenue and
It's
earnings to
so
increase.
good. It's so good that the market does not give any value to it.
No, it's not true. They do give value to it.
I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
Machine is wrong. I think Machine is wrong in his more than $300 billion estimate to FSD Optimus robotaxi stuff, because I think what he's failing to account for is Cybertruck in volume is going to generate some material profits. And and FSD as ADAS is going to generate some material profits as well, even before it gets to kind of this level 4 level where you can put your kid in the back. So yeah, I would estimate Tesla Automotive with Cybertruck in full production at least $300 billion machine. A normalized interest rate environment, Tesla Automotive with Cybertruck in full production, and everything is going smoothly, and you have your operating expenses trimmed with 20% cuts, you're looking at, I think, $300 billion. And on top of that, you have Tesla Energy, which has healthy margins. We expect some more growth, more production out of Shanghai, etc. And then you have FSD as ADAS even before this level 4 level. So I would estimate the current market value assigned to Tesla stock for everything else, including robotaxis, Optimus, at around $100 billion or less. And if it was indeed level 4, this is a multi-trillion-dollar company. Nationwide, level 4 level autonomy, you're looking at multi-trillion-dollar company. So, go ahead.
I think those are reasonable assumptions. I'm going to ask you, what evidence do you think you would need to see before you would think that FSD is near L4, or, well, I don't want to reinterpret that, near a critical disengagement rate that would be close to
Well, I mean,
deployable
you
robotaxi?
said it a year ago, and I agree with your, we have to see months and months of YouTube videos with no distinction. Like you're looking at, you can't find it. I think that's reasonable, and that's what we agreed on. And we don't
Okay.
see that right now. So
What does Omar need to see to believe that it's at a robotaxi level, deployable? Across, I would say across the nation, but many locations.
I think it's going to become clear very quickly that nobody can find any interventions ever for any legitimate reason. That's really where we're getting before the end of this year. It's going to be like news, like, hey, guess what? Someone found an intervention. Oh, really? We haven't heard about that for like 4 months. Yeah, it was like this really weird case. That's when you know.
yeah. And I mean, Wes came up here multiple times and said, "Okay, I haven't had a safety critical disengagement. Can you find it? Can you find it?" And that's so I, outsourced it and said, if anybody has a critical disengagement, repeatable critical disengagements, okay, post it. And every single day there's somebody posting it. So
Yeah, I mean, that's not news. That's always been the case. But what's shocking is how few there are.
Machine that, Michael.
So, Omar, do you agree then that you would expect that to go like a month of YouTube videos without seeing a critical disengagement in any video? You agree with that?
Yes, that's what's going to happen. Nobody is going to be able to find any critical disengagements at all. It'll just always do the right thing.
Hey, Omar.
Michael.
Omar, you said your parents live in a community-gated area. Does your car enter and exit the community gate on its own in autopilot?
It does, yeah.
So I just got off my 1 month free trial. I was on up to 12.3.6. My car would never do it. It would wait, the gates would open up, it would sit there, and if I put the accelerator, it would try to turn right into the center pillar every single time.
Yeah, I mean, different gates can be different, but you can see some videos on my channel of it going through those gates.
Jimmy, Chris, Mike.
So Omar, 30 days, 1 month, you think we're not going to see disengagement videos? Like, would you
30
put
days
money?
from now?
Yeah, I don't know. You said a month.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, what on a
I mean, I think that's
timeline?
a good one. That's a good
On
one.
a timeline.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
On a
I
timeline,
think
where
it's
would you
possible.
think?
It's not outside the realm of possibility, but it's a little aggressive in terms of timeline, obviously. I'd say probably by the end of the year, it'll be extremely rare to find an intervention.
Okay. At the end of the year, Ben, I'm putting you in the back seat and you're driving.
I'll get in the back seat today. Seriously.
Don't.
I don't want you to, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you guys are being so dismissive and condescending. Like, it's literally doing every drive perfectly. And I'm not saying, oh, it's impossible for it to have an intervention. But I think that people are like unable to admit what's really happening because of years and years of just not seeing that much progress. So now they feel stupid to admit that it's actually working because there have been so many false hopes before. But the reality is, it is doing every single drive without intervention.
Okay. Chris, then Mike.
I'd like to just back up Omar here in New York. I'm doing daily drives with my commute, no interventions. Second point, the price was lowered because Elon's a crack dealer and he knows he gives you the first hit for free. That's all I got.
Yeah, then why doesn't he give it for free?
So you subscribe.
But why isn't it free altogether for 3 months?
You only get the first, man. Never did crack, I said. Only get the first hit.
What is the conversion rate today? How many people do you think out of 100 subscribe to it at the end of the 30-day trial period?
I don't know. I did, but I'm on a 6-month trial, and I added for $99. I added it to the end of the 6 months because I had 2 referrals I used.
Okay, so how many people do you think got addicted to this crack cocaine?
I don't know. I'm addicted to it, but I also had it.
Out of how many people? How many do you think got addicted to this your crack cocaine that was given for free?
Say it's got to be at least half the cars in the United States. What's that number?
Well, it's not that. I guess it's not that crack.
Half the cars. That's pretty good. I mean, a 50% conversion rate would be pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be nice. I don't think it's nowhere near that. If you have actually how many? Yeah. Mike, that machine.
So I live in Los Angeles, and I have one of the refreshed Model 3s on 12.3.5, and I've actually had some pretty mixed experiences with it, particularly in neighborhoods without lane markers. I actually got into like a road rage incident because the car stopped at a stop ahead sign about 20 feet from a stop sign and slammed on the brakes, and then this truck behind me started raging out. And I've just had a lot of experiences where it sheepishly approaches intersections.
Sheepishly approaches intersections. The first time I turned it on in Los Angeles, it swung right and dove towards a parked row of cars. You couldn't go 5 minutes without shitting your pants because it tried to kill you. And now people are going, oh, it was a little sheepish. Someone honked at me. That's not even a critical disengagement. That's just being too slow. Waymos and cruises are even slower.
Yeah.
I find it absolutely appalling that Chris could call Elon Musk a crack dealer. That's disgusting. He's obviously a ketamine dealer.
That doesn't make any sense. Ketamine's not addictive the same way crack is.
I think that was his point.
Gotta get up to speed on your drugs, dude.
Omar, I highly suggest you turn on FSD, get in the back seat when you're in LA, and go have it drive up all the mountain roads in the San Gabriel Mountains while you're in the back seat with your eyes shut.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't. You can't suggest illegal activity, sir. Not even in the spaces. You're gonna get banned from X.
I think that if I did that, it would probably work. That's what you haven't wrapped your head around yet.
I believe it would work. I was in the car with you. I think it could handle those roads for the most part.
Just, just be careful about the pessimism because
nobody's being pessimistic. This is not about pessimism or optimism. We are in a space of literally the most optimistic, bullish thousands of investors that are in the world. Okay? Let's be real here. Let's level set here. These are all Tesla investors. They all want FSD to succeed. But this is reality distortion that's trying to be brought into my space. I will not allow that. Jimmy.
Omar, would you consider ever leaving your great state of California and just going anywhere else and testing this for like a week?
I mean, I literally have driven it across the country multiple times. So, people say this all the time, like it's some big accusation, but I live here. It's a big state, I don't drive outside every day, but I have driven it in other states. And there's not like some big performance drop off when you cross the California border. It pretty much works the same everywhere in my experience.
Good to know.
All right, 5 more minutes, a few more minutes, and now we're ending the space. Any questions, comments, please request to speak. Any other, odds and ends we need to cover? Tie some loose ends. Omar, I really like this graphic you made. the meme you put together. I think this is perfect. EVs are dead, hybrids are the future, and with the train crashing into the bus at the top of your screens. Highly recommend sending this to your friends, family, colleagues. It's just perfection. Robert?
I was totally entertained by you guys, but it had two disengagements while you were talking in the last 10 minutes coming out of the school parking lot, because it's a chaotic situation when you're going through rows of kids, you know. It got a little hairy.
Yeah. By the
And
way,
I'm in
just a
California,
message,
South
just
Dakota.
a message to the people who sign up for the $5 tier and then expect to be brought up and speak their mind as they wish. And then when I move them down, they cancel. Okay. Message to those people. Meta is by far the biggest supporter of my Patreon. Okay. And I removed them too.
I'm
So
a $10.
that's the way it works.
I'm on the $10 tier.
Nobody,
I haven't done that. I'm a big supporter.
nobody is safe from being moved down. If they cut other people, if they're unreasonable, persistent to the level of being unreasonable, and yeah, that's that. ACDC.
So that's really, really disappointing to hear, Yaman, that people are so short-sighted that they'll cancel a $5 membership. Here's something that I just wanted to say. If this space to me has been invaluable. Okay, first of all, it's entertaining, and on top of that, you get to learn a lot. There's so many great speakers on here with such a vast knowledge that we get to absorb from. Okay, and here's my question to everybody who's listening on this space. Okay, Yaman does a great job in organizing all the speakers, holding them down, and puts this together for us. Okay, so if you were to run into Yaman once a month, would you buy him coffee? Okay, and if the answer is yes, that's an easy of an you've answered your question if you can subscribe to the space for $5 a month. So that's the least everybody can do, and I think it goes a long way to support the space and to grow it more. So that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
some people, shitting on Yaman on the timeline. He defended Troy, and the fact is, Troy has been extremely accurate in his production and delivery estimates. Even if he may say things on other topics that people don't agree with, I mean, nobody is going to be correct on everything, but you still want to treat people with respect, I think, ultimately, even if you disagree with them on something. Know who's on your team and know who's on the other team. And we need all the team members we can get. But, to the people who criticize him, let's go see you start a space. Let's go see let you put in the time to sit here day after day, providing a resource for the community to come to. You won't, because you just talk shit and you don't actually do what he does. So that's why I'm on his Patreon for $100 a month. And it's not because I agree with everything he says, but it's a resource for the community. And if you don't like it, well, you stand around with your dick in your hands and talk to yourself while, other people are in here discussing, debating, and, just being entertained, having a place to come talk about Tesla up to the minute something happens. There's probably a space going on during the day. So, take 5 minutes, go subscribe on Patreon, go look at your credit card statement. I bet you can find 5 stupid things you spent money on. Some subscription for Audible. You don't even listen to audiobooks, but you just forgot the trial, went, and now you're paying for Audible. Go cancel that shit. Sign up for the Patreon instead. Something you actually listen to.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Let's end on that note. ACDC, unless you have something final to say.
No, that's good. Let's continue tomorrow.
Okay. This space has been going on for 3 hours. I appreciate every single second of it. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.